Hey there, Dave. How's it
Hey,
going?
Austin.
Just went live
Okay.
10, 15 seconds ago. So we are on live and on the stage. Just letting you know that right off the rip. It sounds like I can hear you. We've got some viewers. You know the deal. Let us know if we sound good, if you can hear us and see the slides and screens and everything's.
Sounds good to me. And looks like your
Mike is here.
channel's up and going. Everything looks good here.
Oh, I can't hear.
Hey, Mike.
Oh,
I hear you.
now I can.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Lisa?
Finally, yeah.
There we go.
Hey,
Hey,
yep.
Mike.
So, welcome everybody to Evidence the Evolution Show, episode 10. We've just gone live. I'm here with my good friends of the channel, Dave and Mike, who've been on the show several times. Yeah, Mike, I decided I wanted to get started. I sent that in the chat, and then you guys jumped right on. So I need to let you all know right off the rip. We're on stage right now. So
glad I know now.
Just went live. If you need a minute to jump out and like get a drink or use the bathroom or do something, anything, that's fine.
Nope, I got my coffee.
But I think we all sound good and we see good and everybody can see everything. So we're going to go ahead and jump right in because the last episode part of this multi-episode series that we're doing, it took like 4 or 5 hours almost, I feel like, with the prep up beforehand, like before jumping on stage, plus all of the going through hundreds of fields of science that support evolution and all the many, many mendacious distortions and lies creationists tell about all these many data pools of science, the archaeological pool, the genetic pool, and whatnot. So we got up to this slide here without you, Mike. Slide number 19 or 20, the ecology and environmental interaction slide. But I figured we want to start right here.
Ooh, you just went robot.
There were some things we missed. Huh?
Okay. You just went robot for just about
Wait,
10 seconds. So.
Oh no.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I was just explaining. I don't know what you heard or missed, but I was just talking about how we are discussing all the evidence that supports evolution, and we got up to this slide. It's 19 or 20 out of like 40 or so of just the actual slides explaining things before it gets into the slides with all the sources. So just to recap a little bit, we'll go back to slide 1 here. This is the evidence of evolution presentation here. It's something I did as it started off as just creationists always screaming, "What's the evidence for evolution?" and give me the evidence for evolution, and me finding out that, oh my God, there's so much evidence for evolution, I can't even really give you like a succinct answer to what is the evidence for evolution. The best I can do is to break it down into categories, like these 14 categories I've assembled here, which hopefully you guys can see on the screen here. And we went over this last time. The foundational concepts and direct observations, the paleoscience, the archaeological record, as it were, genetics, comparative anatomy, biogeography. One thing we didn't go through on our romp through 7 of these massive categories, which can all actually kind of fold into the first 3 categories if you think about it from one level of meta-analysis. But we won't go on that tangent right now. One thing we didn't get into at all, though, Mike, was the second chromosomal fusion. And since you have become kind of an expert on that, I hope maybe we could start there a little bit, and then we'll transition back to slide 20 of ecology, where we left off last time.
Okay.
Okay.
Go
Well,
ahead, Mike.
yeah, I don't have. Yeah, chromosome 2 is pretty deep, and we're still digging on that one. But all we really need to say about it is that if you line these chromosomes up, the genes basically line up perfectly, except for a very small section where there's some crossover and some blocks that got shuffled around, which is exactly what we would expect for a group of genes next to a fusion site. So it's slam dunk, and I don't know why they want to die on that hill, but I don't think anybody in biology rejects that fusion site other than religious people for biblical reasons, and that's it. That's about it. I don't have any. Like I say, I'm still digging into it. Yeah,
Precisely, Mike. I would say the basics of chromosome fusion 2 is that it is an event that happened in human past in the model of evolution. It explains the difference in the numbers of chromosomes between ape ancestors and humans that now have one less pair of chromosomes because two of them got folded into one.
Yep.
And left a lot of evidence in our genetics.
Yeah.
And
it is good.
If you want to hear Mike get into all of the mendacity creationists have constructed about that, which is an elaborate web that it's one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. It's deep microbiological stuff. I myself am barely comprehending it, and I put a fair amount of coursework into this stuff, guys. And I mean the fact that they're producing propaganda at that level is mind blowing to me. I wonder what level of resources that takes to keep the top level people, still committed to the cause. But
well, Tompkins hasn't. He dug in a little bit, but he didn't dig in far enough. I don't know of anybody that's done what I did and went right down to the nucleotides and looked at them character by character, right? But the interesting thing,
because most people forget you can do that. It's not the most efficient way to do things, but if you're somebody like you who has the time and is interested, and I love that you did that. It's so awesome. That's why I love having you as a resource to the channel. It's fair.
But there's another part of this.
If they are any level of sane, they probably shouldn't go into the sciences. If they're not ready to subject everything to torturous levels of critical thinking, it's just probably not for them. But anyways, what were you saying, Mike?
But there's another piece of this that's really important, because chromosome 2 fusion dovetails right into this current controversy about, are we 1% identical or 15% identical? And when you start looking into it in these in this detailed way, that starts to become a little bit meaningless, the whole argument, right? Other than that, we are really highly identical. I mean, there's just a lot of areas, but then there's like little areas that aren't identical, and it's like, why are we trying to turn something as complicated as 3.4 billion nucleotides into a percentage and fighting about it? Anyway, they're going on. Katie Luskin every day has a video on this stuff. It's amazing. Anyway, I'll shut up. Okay.
No, you're fine. That's great. That's exactly why I wanted you on the channel, because I knew you had some deep insights to provide on that chromosome 2 fusion thing. And of course, last time we touched on the foundational concepts, and we probably will this time. And as I summarized last time, those foundational concepts are the fossil record, the archaeological data, genetics, and applied evolution. Those are the three primary insights, as far as I see them, into what supports evolution. And that sounds like not a lot, but it actually does fold out into hundreds of fields of science. So we'll go over that probably a little bit as well this time. And last time we left off on ecology. And it's true for both chromosomal fusion 2 and a lot of the evidence we'll bring up tonight that you could put chromosome fusion 2 in a lot of these categories, including kind of the one we're on right now, ecology, which we left off on this slide last time. And one thing I've taken the liberty of doing is adding in some additional slides to help illustrate some of the points in ecology about how this is such a pivotal field with so much support for evolution. And this is one of the ones that explains why evolution is so important and why creationists lie about it a lot, because they're also right-wingers. They think they can burn through the planet's resources as much as they want, and that they're not ape men who don't want to return to nature like all of us do. And, you know, like we're not screaming for it, and are trying to convince us that we were meant to wear suits and clock in and clock out and, you know, scrounge around for marbles and peanuts and all kinds of crazy stuff instead of, you know, bending the earth to our will with our superior intellect in agriculture and creating a post scarcity utopia Star Wars style thing, or Star Trek style thing, I guess would be more accurate. I like Star Wars more, but Star Trek was more what I was thinking. It's like the post capitalist kind of communist post scarcity utopia. I think we could be close to things like that. Like we could use maybe gene manipulation to solve some agricultural problems. We could definitely use it to solve medical problems, and this is one of the areas of study that is very important for evolution, and it's how evolution is important to science, and it's also part of why creationists lie about evolution so much. So it's super important on multiple levels, and it's just fascinating, right? It's the study of ecological relationships. And one of the cool things I think you discover about ecological relationships and coevolution is that really there's no such thing as non-coevolution. That every organism evolves in a web of relationships to other organisms. No evolution is completely without co-evolving species, including humans. And I bet you could probably think of some of the species we co-evolved with if I asked you to. I have one sleeping on the couch next to me. He's a real butthole. And he's really annoying sometimes, but dang is he cute, and he activates all kinds of neurons in my brain.
Yeah.
But on the burning through resources, I just heard somebody talking about it, that we've got plenty of oil and gas and coal and everything. They
think it's 50, still being made.
50, yeah, well, they estimate 50 to 100 years. It's like, you don't realize how fast 50 years goes. I mean, any of us that are older realize 50 years goes by pretty fast. And to put in infrastructure and everything else that's needed to transition away is going to take at least that long. So we absolutely should be working on it now and not waiting until it runs out.
Yep. Can I just add one more thing to your ecology think cap, basically, or think tank that we should be thinking about? Every single cell in your body, if you consider it a separate organism, also lives in an ecology with all the other cells in your body. And some of these cells live, you know, there's this input output that happens with cells, and their surrounding cells and the surrounding environment are all interactive. So anyway, when you think about that, it's really kind of cool, because then you think about organ formation and a whole bunch of other things. Pretty neat.
100%. So that's one of the reasons you can recapitulate multicellularity evolutions with a variety of species. One of which being choanoflagellates. You can get them to basically evolve into sponges in observable time spans, because sponges, they don't even have a tissue level of organization. They just have loose conglomerates of cells, sessile filter feeders that don't even have their own actual physical piece for structure. They get their structure from pumping water through them and feeding on the little particulates in the water. And that they are one of the fundamental stages of evolution and one of the most diverse animal phyla there is. Because they are so diverse, they are one of the 8 major phyla, the phyla Porifera, with all the sea sponges in it. And that's something you learn when you like start taking actual like biology and evolution classes in college. It's really cool.
Yeah.
There's so many different varieties of them, and they come in all kinds of different colors, and the colors have a huge impact on their evolution. And it's true that colors have a huge impact on the evolution of flowers too, because God, I love how interconnected evolution is. It makes it easy to do a presentation like this, even though it's literally impossible to actually cover all the evidence for evolution. That's something we went over in the first episode of this, is that we're not really trying to cover literally all of it. We're just trying to give at least a good comprehensive synopsis. And we're about halfway through at 7 or 8 hours in. So right now we're talking about angiosperm and insect coevolution. And this is a fascinating phenomena because it illustrates how different forces can impact the same trait at the same time. I bet you guys can kind of guess what I'm even talking about with that, because I know this crowd is some major nerds, and a lot of this is going to be review for all of us because we spend so many decades refuting creationists.
Well, you're absolutely on point with there's so much that goes into it with all the coevolution and symbiosis and and hosting, things too. I mean, how many of us in other life forms are hosting, bacteria and viruses and everything else, and that's all comes together, and it is fascinating.
100%. And Mike was just making that point that cells are themselves an ecology. And I have a slide for that later in the presentation, Mike. It's about what's called the 4 levels of organization for viewing an organism. It's viewing the you as a complete organism, you as a colony of cells, you as the communities within the colonies, and you as the genetic material down in the very core of all the different little things inside the communities, the mitochondrial DNA, the human DNA, all the different little mixes of genes and viroids and viriolas and various little replicators that make us up. But anyways, what I was talking about with flower and insect coevolution is the fact that flowers' bright, beautiful colors, they attract their pollinators, but they also make them very visible. So you can see how this trait can be both an advantage and a disadvantage at the same time. And one of the reasons it persists despite that is that it's such a huge advantage. The angiosperm body plan is the best for plant reproduction. Flowers reproduce so well because so many of them are like this flower in this diagram. They're stamens, they're little flower testicles, Dave. I know you always love talking about how a creator would never design testicles that are that far outside of the body and that vulnerable. The flower, the angiosperm, some of these guys got their little bits way out there. And that's because they and the tubules and all these things produce the greater chance of the bee picking up some of its gametes, some of its pollen, and some of its other things that the bee desires that helps the plant reproduce as it travels around from flower to flower, and it helps them spread genetic diversity. So the bee gets a nice little treat, the plant gets a nice boost to its reproductive efficiency. And even though the plant is bright colored and predators can see it and easily choose it to be a meal, a lot of plants have developed like alkaloids and toxins and things that don't taste very good on their surface, that makes them so that even though they're visible, things don't decide to eat them, at least not their flower as much. And even if there are instances where of angiosperm, most of its body can get eaten, but if some of its gametes fall off around and still hit the ground, it can still have offspring, which is like such a crazy advantage to think about in the reproductive spectrum. And the reproductive spectrum itself is such a big support of evolution. I love that little fact. There's a little pea pod tree outside my office, and I think about if they ever decided to cut that thing down, they'd have to actually go and scoop out every single little pea pod that drops on the ground, or they can't be sure a new one won't just grow right in that spot.
Are they actual pea pods? Those on the bush?
So technically, peas are a dry fruit. They are produced by angiosperm flowering plants. And it's the fruit. It's technically the ovary. It's the part of the plant that houses the seed, right? And yes, they're dry fruits. So I'm sorry.
Okay.
What was the question again?
There's a whole pea. There's a whole pea family, and some of them are bushes, and most of them are poisonous. So anyway, but it's interesting. I haven't seen one since I was a kid, but we used to have these bushes, and they look like peas, and our parents said, "Don't eat those; they'll kill you."
Yes, anyway. There's trees too. They're all in the family Fabaceae.
Yeah, can I point something out about flowers?
Yes, absolutely.
Flowers are leaves and stems. They're modifications of leaves and stems. And there's something called the MADS box. It's a set of 4 proteins that basically differentiate. They make the leaves different, and they're a little bit of change in regulation or genes here and there. A different concoction of ratios of genes will create differing flowers, and so it's a real easy. That's an easy modification to go from a leaf to a flower. So anyway,
yes, one of the things that I love about the peas, the Fabaceae family, is that they're one of the species that Gregor Mendel, the father of genetics, himself studied the most. And he built diagrams exactly like this one on the slide, where you can see the flower kind of changing in response to this partnership, and it almost looks like one of his Punnett squares that he would draw for his pea plants. And it makes so much sense, especially when you synthesize it with the fact that there are species of insects that have specialized organs precisely for plumbing the depths of these plants' specific parts to feast on their pollen and their honey and all their various little tasty sugars and snacks. Like this one in the diagram on the left here, insect and plant coevolution and ecology is one of the great evidences for evolution. If you're asked by a creationist, what is the evidence for evolution? This is a great one to bring up, to just say insects and flowers. What are you talking about when you say there's no evidence for evolution? Absolutely nonsense, absurd thing to claim.
They cite that as evidence against evolution. The fact that, the insect, and the proboscis too has a set of genes that are easy to modify that would make it longer or shorter. So. Or give it a different shape.
And that's a chicken and the egg question too. And they'll bring up, well, what did the flowers do before the insects found them? Well, they used wind and gravity and a lot of other things. It just was a lot better when the insects came along, and then you got a lot more diversity.
Yeah, their microevolution that they're talking about and that they definitely believe in. The finches, and the beaks that very quickly within generations modify to handle different kinds of nuts and food, right? And they accept that. And it's the same thing with coevolution of insects and flowers.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
This is another point about insect coevolution and flowers. This is a specific species of moth, caterpillar, and plant species that have all evolved in a really fascinating coevolutionary relationship. The flowers in these plants all produce varying levels of different toxins. Depending on where the caterpillar is placed in the environment, the final stage will have some varying differences, but it's always a little mildly toxic. And these the caterpillar rather, all evolve special feeding habits, behaviors to survive on feeding on the plants with the mild levels of toxins they have, that they've evolved moderate defenses against these toxins. The ones on the plant to the right, they eat in a circle pattern, and it keeps them from getting sick. Because the plant on the right has evolved a response that involves moving things through the veins, and if the caterpillar eats in a circular pattern, it moves away from the area before the vein starts delivering the toxin there. And all of these caterpillars have different strategies like that for these plants that they can be randomly dispersed on by the adults. It's such a freaking fascinating ecological relationship. And of course, it makes absolutely zero sense without evolution. How would this thing be able to respond to these many different ecologically? They're ecologically and morphologically different in that they do different toxins and they have different shapes and respond to different. It's so mind blowing. And one of the things I love is that I think this is like Pokemon has referenced this in the fact that there's so many different caterpillar Pokemon that evolve so many different ways. In every game, they introduce at least one or two new caterpillar Pokemon. And I think they might be cleverly winking at this. And I just love that for them. But anyways, I just found this super fascinating. I found this in a Nature article as I was doing a little more research for this presentation.
Your monarchs do the opposite almost, right? They
Correct.
embrace the toxins so that they don't get eaten. So that's a whole other line there. Yeah.
It makes lepidopterology, the science that studies butterflies, like way cooler than you would have thought it was, right? Like, it seems like such a fringe, abstruse science, but it's so cool because relationships like this exist ecologically speaking. So that is kind of the okay, right. And then so we talked about the plant insect coevolution and how that's a great answer to what's the evidence for evolution. Here's another great answer, and that is plant fungi coevolution. And this one's a great answer because none of the biodiversity on the planet would exist without this. As it turns out, an enormous variety of plant species aren't actually as good at acquiring nutrients and water through their roots as they need to be to survive. And that's where fungi comes in. And that's what this is a diagram about. Mike, do you have visuals to share? This is another reason why I'm glad you're here, Mike. I know you have tons of visuals for evolutionary evidence, so any you want to drop, I would be happy to include.
Yeah, there's one I just pulled up here that shows you the MADS box genes, basically how they how varying amounts of them create like a carpel, a stamen, a petal, or a sepal on a flower. And
how do I make you full screen so we can look at it?
I think all you got to do is, I know it's hard to find the box on StreamYard. Their boxes are very unintuitive.
Is this it?
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Anyway,
there we go.
Yeah, and I'm not. Let's see. Now, I have not looked at this diagram in detail, but we got, let's see, we have, let's see, plus, okay, flower from the outside. Oh, I'm not sure entirely, but anyway, the difference is like A plus E will be expressed, and you'll get a sepal, and A plus B plus E, you'll get a petal. B plus C plus E, you'll get it. Just like the Hox genes, it's kind of the same thing. It works in the same fashion that different ones expressed will end up with like a different kind of limb or whatever. So, but anyway, this is some of the genes involved in that. And this is a ChatGPT, by the way, that where I pulled this stuff up. And if you look at the MADS box, we got MCM1, agamus deficiens, and serum response factor S, and that makes up the MADS box. But anyway, just so the audience knows that we're not bullshitting about this, about what we know about the evolution of these genes. It's very easy for, like, even a virus or a transposon jumping in front of a protein to cause it to express a little bit more. And when you look at a population of plants, you've got a big population of plants, and there are going to be some of them that, you know, have kind of mutated weird flowers, right? A little bit different than the other ones, maybe prettier, maybe, you know, bigger colors or whatever. And if those things are better at getting pollinated and reproducing, they will very quickly evolve into a different kind of flower, that sort of thing. And we've done this with cauliflower and broccoli and, you know, Brussels sprouts. We've changed those flowering portions, right, significantly.
100%.
Yeah. Anyway, okay. You make me small again. Make me small again. Make America small again.
Oh gosh, how do I make?
Yeah, I know. Well, there's a whole bunch of little. Yeah. Okay. Got it.
Bam! That did it. Nice. There.
Yeah.
You did it.
Yeah. So basically, I like this because this is an example that really contradicts creationists' most common response to when you bring up ecological relationships. They'll say, "Oh, now you need both species to randomly evolve compatible mutations at the same time," and it's like, no, this relationship can just exist. And if it happens to have, if either species has a random mutation that makes this partnership better for it, like if the if the fungi evolves to live closer to the plant's roots, or evolves a mutation that makes it closer and closer, and that's what this diagram shows pretty much, is that you see as it gets closer to the body of the plant, eventually at this final stage, the roots are like reaching out all the way into the earth. And that's basically what coevolution is. It's this partnership exists. You can get a random mutation that makes the partnership more fruitful for you. And if you do, it becomes essential. And eventually you don't really survive without this relationship, but you thrive when you do have the relationship.
Right. And there's the minerals are going up this, you know, basically up the vascular network in the tree, and the sugar is going down. And I've heard that some trees, as much as 30% of their sugar, they give away to the the fungus.
I'm so glad you brought that point up, because that is like unheard of ecologically. Even in like the trophic levels, organisms don't get that much energy from consuming an entire other organism. Like the fact that it's giving that much energy up, and it's because when your fungi is healthy, you are healthy as a plant. It gets you the water and nutrients you need in greater proportion. They have the sugar to give up, but the nutrients and water they don't. It's such a perfect coevolutionary relationship, and because of it, there's this massive biosphere that is a enormous majority of it is plant biomass, and then the second biggest majority of it is insect biomass, and mammal biomass is pretty far down the chain, actually, I think, if we did the math on it. But
we don't
this
matter.
plant and fungi biomass is the plant biomass is huge, and a bunch of this plant biomass is actually not really plant. It's stuff like lichens, where it's actually an algal colony and a fungal colony that have co-evolved a very primitive version of this relationship. And that's why there was this thing called the Carboniferous period. Another example of cross verification of evolution. Botany, the more I get into it, the more I'm like, this is why creationists won't take botany debates. Plant evolution just blows them out of the water. They aren't even close to touching it.
Right, or insects. They never talk about that.
Yes.
Because for insects and plants, it's very easy to visualize how populations vary. They can vary going down a hillside or, toward a swamp where it gets wetter.
100%,
and when the flower mutates, or there's a mutated flower that has a slightly deeper flower, or
yes,
I forget what they call it. There's also insects in that population.
To what's called niche partitioning, maybe.
Yes, and they can break off very easily and actually form different species, or either by reproductive success or some geological thing where basically insect populations get separated all the time by streams and hillsides and avalanches and all that stuff. So anyway, very easy to they hardly ever want to talk about plants and insects. They want to talk about mammals.
Yeah,
they love
they
talking
don't even
about
say
chimps.
that insects were on the ark.
Yeah, right.
Yes, insects are a huge problem for the ark story.
Yeah.
Yes,
on
how many levels?
And how come they never talk about insect kinds, right? And plant kinds,
there's
right?
Billions of them, and they would never be able to get away with that. But they talk
and because it's another example where the Bible is super ambiguous because they didn't know really about diversity as well. It's like how the Bible calls everything a deer. Anytime it refers to a deer, it would just say the word deer or whatever the common word is for deer. But now we know there's so many deers. There's a muntjac, there's an ibiza, there's all these different kinds of deer,
Unless they're comparing a bird and a bat.
Right, yeah.
Because in that list, they name pigeons and like 50 different birds, and then they just throw in a bat.
Yeah.
Like,
when you have a magic zoo boat, anything is possible.
Exactly, yep.
One of my favorite things about the way insect species cause problems for the ark is the fact that so many insect species are xylophagous, meaning they're able to eat wood. And digest it because they have bacteria.
That would be a terrible ordeal.
And wood actually has a lot of calories in it. It's just difficult to digest because it has a chemical in it called lignin that makes the calories hard to, get processed for most organisms. But there's bacteria that can break it down, just like there's many kinds of special bacteria that can break down all kinds of substances, like even substances that didn't exist until 1930s or so, when we started making synthetic things like nylon. I think we talked about this before. Yeah.
That's really cool, actually.
Yeah.
Good name. Good name for a video would be Termites on the Ark.
Yeah.
Insects
think about it.
It'd just be a terrible.
So one of the things I think is interesting too is they call the kind of wood the ark was made out of gopher wood, which linguistically I think kind of implies that it's a kind of wood that gophers would feed on. Maybe maybe eating the ark is a part of their calculation. Like by the time they landed on Mount Ararat, there wasn't any of the ark left, and that was part of how they solved food problems and waste problems.
Could be how Noah lived 600 years, also.
Yeah, right.
And that's why we can't find the ark today, because the gophers
they ate it.
They ate the walls down. That's how they got the door open after they landed.
Doing work on my roof, we disturbed these little black ants, and they bite, by the way.
And
they're chewing up the wood and everything too. Yeah. Not anymore. I sprayed them.
Terrible.
So here's the second list of catalogs of eco-sciences that are important for evolution, and this is hard for me to read on my my screen here, so I gotta pull my other resource up. 1 second. Here we go. And it looks like, yeah, this is just a list of some. Oh, there's a YouTube video I included in here. Oh, right. Okay. Because included in this list, there's ecotoxicology, which
Oh,
is
poisonous plant.
it's literally an entire field of science that's all about studying a specific evolutionary arms race that we've recently discovered specifically is way more like crazy prolific than we thought. Like almost every species has some way of producing a biotoxin. Well,
That's
not
awesome.
almost every, but like an enormous amount of species, like 60 or 70% of species have some kind of biotoxin on their nails or on their
That's so
bite,
cool.
or that they secrete through their skin or on their stems and leaves, like we were talking about previously. So it's this massive evolutionary arms race all throughout ecology. It's like way deeper than anybody thought. And there was a very
It's
recent article
amazing
about it.
that you can
But I
brush up
found it was,
against a plant and just completely, it'll just annihilate you. Like,
yeah,
running poison oak, that's it. Like, you're going to feel that for like a month. Like, it
And
is
yeah.
amazing
if you're
how
interested in any
efficient
of that,
toxins can be from a plant.
yeah, they have whole horticulture gardens that are just the toxins, and
Yeah, those are super
yeah,
cool. I
yeah,
actually
you
talked to
don't
Austin about that a
want to
while
touch
back.
any of
Like,
it, but yeah, you can stroll through and see them all. It's really neat.
now I saw there was a video that I watched of the guy that takes care of one of those in England or somewhere.
Yeah.
And he had to put on a full toxic
Y-
suit to go
Yep.
in there, and
Yep.
like that would be awesome. I'd love to walk through there. That'd be so much fun.
And I also have in my notes here this interesting computer science experiment because I think it's an interesting example of one of the many, many interdisciplinary cross verifications that this presentation puts together so well. And it's this video of this guy who literally the title of the video is I programmed creatures, they evolved, or something like that. It's really close to something like that. And one of the things he did in this experiment where he programmed creatures and they evolved was he gave them a kill function, a function
Oh,
where they could kill another organism if it was in their path, because the parameter for how they evolved was they were supposed to move across the screen, and if they got into a certain geometrical area, that meant they survived and would get to reproduce. So the next generation would base their, algorithms, their basic neurons that the computer designer designed for them. Super fascinating experiment. And when he gave them the kill option, it became pivotal to how behavior played out over generations. And I thought it was really interesting. And it kind of cross confirmed what was found in this recent ecological experiment, which is that or you can have a state where organisms can exist and they're capable of like killing basically everything around them, but they don't that much, which is kind of the state we exist in. And you can have a state where organisms are capable of killing everything around them and they do kill each other a lot and it's still stable. And we used to have a system like that too. And I think we can all agree the new system is a lot better.
I
For
appreciate it.
humans especially.
I live in New Jersey. I can't have my gun, so I
You're right.
appreciate I appreciate it a little bit.
So that's the ecology slide. I think we covered a lot of the points on that. I'm not sure if there's any specific major creationist arguments I want to address that we didn't get to. I know we're not going to get to every single creationist argument they make about these subjects because they lie about them so much. But I think like just covering the core information is pretty good.
About
Um,
plants?
well, this was the ecology slide, the
Oh, okay, but
ecology and environmental interactions slide. And we talked about plants a lot. We talked about flowers and insects and plants and fungi. And we
yeah,
talked
I came
about
in when you guys were talking about fungi. Sorry, I'm late. I just
why
got off
why
work.
ecology from a meta-analysis point is one of the important reasons creationists fight against evolution. They
Hmm.
don't think that species can actually affect the planet, and species very clearly can affect the planet.
Oh yeah.
It's happened many times. Scientists have really bland, boring names for them that don't sound as interesting as they should, like the Great Oxygen Catastrophe, which they really should have named the Everything Dying in Flames Bowl of the prehistoric era with oxygen as the main killer. Or, but science doesn't make itself as interesting as it should. It's always trying to be like sober and measured and anyways. So this is the next stage. This one is biochemistry and biophysics and physiology. This is one of the other categories that you can say when creationists ask, what is the evidence for evolution? Just say those three words. And if they don't know what you're talking about, they probably should go to Google and just search up how do physiology, biochemistry, biophysics support evolution. And I'm sure it'll give them all a nice, concise
Yeah, that's what
answer.
I like to tell them about abiogenesis. It's like that came from nothing. It's like, no, it's a chemical reaction. Like, that's what happened.
Yeah.
Like, there's millions of chemical reactions all over the world that
Yes.
happen in your body even right now. Like,
Yes.
that's how you're able to think. And it's like,
So that
well,
is one of the major points of this category is that, yes, life is just chemistry. And we're going to go over a couple specific examples of that chemistry, like cytochrome C. And I think we got the Miller-Urey experiment over here in a slide away from that. So, yes, we'll get into that in a little bit. First, the broad category here of physiology, biochemistry, and biophysics. And this category is about how basically the universe answers the question of how do you make life happen. This is about the energy it takes to make life happen, which is a big part of ecology too. The last slide we were talking about. It's also about how life solves various problems like movement and structure and access to vital resources. This is what biochemistry, biophysics, and physiology is all about. And evolution makes a lot of sense of that. And we've been, talking about that at length during this and the previous episode.
Don't forget stickiness. Cells like to stick together.
Oh, yeah. You made this point to me before, Mike, which is one I think I've overlooked.
Slim just covered a very simple mechanism that they have put into these devices, and they manage to crawl around, find their way around.
Yeah.
Know what is this and that with very basics of any type of electron. Slim did.
Oh, I'm going to ask for a link.
They're basically cyborgs, right? They're neural networks.
With no information. Yeah, they just, it falls over and it goes, oh, okay, well, don't do that again, or you're going to fall to the left. Yeah. And then it falls to the right and it goes, okay, well, don't do that because you're going to fall to the right. And it figures, it figures things out all by itself without pre-programming.
So wild. Yeah. Super cool. And that is part of how fields like this continue to use evolution to build on science, and how science continues to, in return, build on evolution. And we can get into this specific example now, because this one is super cool, and it's one I'm still kind of like wrapping my brain around. Cytochrome C. It's this super cool protein that helps humans and like almost every other animal make energy. Mike, do you know about this protein? I know you've talked about proteins a lot with Sal Cordova, and it's one of your areas of interest.
I know a little bit about this. It's in the mitochondria and the membrane, and it's part of our energy system. Cytochrome C.
Yes, it's part of the electron transport chain. It's not part of the cycle itself where the ATP that fuels that chain comes from. That's the Krebs cycle. But these are both like super highly conserved evolutionary processes.
Yep.
And this specific protein, it's really interesting because it's affected by selection really, really obviously. You might be familiar with that aspect of it, Mike, if I mention that, because it's vital for processing nutrients and turning those into energy for an organism. So if it doesn't work, selection is immediately like straight to the scrap bin. You don't have enough
you die
energy
right away,
to do the things you need to do. Exactly. So
that's why it's also one of the favorites for creationists for some reason. I can't remember what the reason is.
It's so weird.
Yeah, they'll claim that. What the hell are they claiming? It has to do with the mitochondrial clock, basically. And standing for truth loves is one cytochrome C, but
yeah, I've heard them talk about mitochondrial Eve and stuff, but I don't know about.
Yeah, they mentioned
so one of the
cytochrome
things that's interesting about this, Jeremy, and I want to mention this because it's on my brain right now as we're talking about it, and I don't want to forget to bring it up before we move on, is that the protein is so conserved that you can count like the amino acid differences between like mammal species and between like humans and Rhesus species. There's like one amino acid difference, and the exact rest of the chain is 100% the same. You know, and then for like more broadly for like mammal species, it's higher but still really low. Like it's 7 between us and beavers. It's 11 between us and freaking elephants. You know, like going at the very extremes of biology. It shows how super highly conserved this gene is, and it shows why the changes still exist, because you can still get more efficient at processing nutrients, and that's why there are some changes. It's super good for evolution. Like it does boggle my mind that creationists even try to make up propaganda.
I'm just trying to
hard
think
for
of
me
what
to
kind of
understand
arguments they could have with that would make it. I mean, the only thing I could think is intelligent design.
Yes,
like where they would be. This is just an intelligent designer.
That's where
look
I would
how
go
he's
with
just left it right in mammals, and then also has it. You know, that would be the only way I would think that. I mean, it sounds like something that I've probably heard from, at least one group that I'm in.
Yeah, it's in biology textbooks. It's around, cytochrome.
That's really awesome, though.
There's so many genetic meters, Jer, and they're all they can be a little complicated, but they do all kind of like fit each other, and they support evolution. That's why genetics itself is like it has the multiple lines
deep.
of evidence, and then outside of genetics, you have the other lines too. It makes it like going to a crime scene and being like, oh, we have weapon, motive, eyewitness. We saw the guy.
For me, there's some things in biology and stuff that's just like, wow, especially genetics, where it's just like, wow, like that is really deep. I would never. And then it's a lot of words. I'm like, oh shit, but like, it definitely there's a lot there.
It to the laymen that they can understand like what the shape of it is. Like you do really have to put a lot of effort in to get like kind of an expert level of understanding where you can like really talk about these things.
Because when you start talking about telomere to telomere and other like that gets, that gets pretty deep pretty fast. But it's still something that I can pay attention. Once I start kind of understanding it, though I can catch it. But it's just like, goddamn, like there's a lot to that.
So Mike, one of the things I love about him is he has gotten into those areas. Like he has gotten into the chromatin and the DNA and the genetics and the A's and the C's and the T's and the G's.
I've watched that debate between Professor Dan and that geneticist that they talked about abiogenesis, and like he's James Turek. Yeah, James Turek.
Oh,
like
man.
I've watched that debate like 3 times, and it's like it's so deep for me. Like, I can understand because I understand the basic part of it, but God, man, it gets fucking deep.
Yeah, I offered to debate him, and he said he wouldn't debate me because I don't have a PhD.
Oh, really? Yeah, he doesn't want to get into that again. Like, Professor Dan made him look so bad.
Yeah. I'm working on it. Yeah, maybe someday. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
there's a cytochrome C molecule. I have a picture of it here. The heme unit, basically, that does the electron transport. And there's the thing to point out here is, we've got like this big long piece.
Man.
this big piece of spaghetti, that's called the disordered region, that it doesn't really fold up. But these little curly things are called alpha helices, and they have a certain amount of, they would allow for a certain amount of mutation, but not a lot. So it has to have this particular shape, right? And if that shape mutates, if like you get an amino acid where like this thing would stick to that, right? It would change the fold of the protein, and it wouldn't fit in quite as much. So that's one of the reasons why it's highly conserved, but it also is not totally conserved. So we can use it as a biological clock because we see some differences in it. But that's just from
the protein itself, right?
Yeah.
And we're also seeing a little bit of the genetic structure of the protein, the primary structure, a little bit. That's so cool, Mike. That's such a great picture. Thank you for grabbing that and pulling that up.
Yeah, that's just from the Wikipedia article on cytochrome C, and we could go look at the actual sequence very easily, but we're not going to do that to you. So, anyway.
Oh God, yeah, that's fair. We don't want the whole episode to be cytochrome C, which there are many slides and much on this presentation that could easily be entire whole episodes. So. Okay.
Well, yeah, I bet there's a lot.
You know what? I have a quick question, Mike, about that picture you just showed of cytochrome C, because it's kind of showing the genetic structure, the primary structure, a little bit of it, and it looks, you can almost see how something like that would tessellate. Does that thing self-replicate? That is basically what the genetics would do, right? So it self-replicates and it like processes energy. So it's an example of DNA that does more than just self-replicate?
No, it primarily just process. This does not self-replicate. So it wouldn't. Yeah, it's not complicated enough to do that. Yeah. So primarily it takes that heme structure at the center, which is related to blood and chlorophyll. They all have this heme structure at the center. And let's see what
that's where the hemoglobin comes from.
Yep. And the heme structure is a particular kind of chemistry that's very conserved everywhere across all of life. Pretty interesting. Chlorophyll is very similar and all of that. And that's about all I know about it. So I could learn more if you want.
No, that's good. I think, like we said, we're not trying to give a comprehensive clinic on every single topic here. We're just trying to get some of the main ones and, cover some of the things creationists say about them and introduce people to fields of science they themselves can research if they find it piquing their interest. And you never know. You may be the next lay person, even if you aren't someone pursuing a science degree, who contributes something to the body of scientific literature, like our friend Mike here is about to be, if he can figure out some way to formalize a publication of this chromosome
put it into a paper
thing he did. Yeah, you're really onto something there, Mike. But so this is the second part of the slide, and what this slide is talking about a lot is where abiogenesis and things like that start to come in, like biogeochemistry and evolutionary geochemistry and biochemistry, where geochemistry starts to become biological. And this happens because all of biomolecules are just constructed of chemicals. A specific array of chemicals are the main ones that are used in life on Earth. We use a useful little mnemonic for that called CHOMPS, CHONPS, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, and sulfur, I think, are what it stands for. But you can always easily look it up. That's one of the great things about science is you don't have to always remember exactly what it is. But if you got a nice little device, you can always figure out a way to quickly look it up. So you don't
we
have
live
to
in the future now, so Google is awesome.
But good old CHOMPS.
I did not know about CHOMPS. That's great. That's a neat acronym. Wow.
Yeah,
thank you.
CHOMPS.
Yeah.
Put that in the chat real quick.
Uppercase, hopefully. Chomps.
Well, no, I lowercased it because
Oh,
yeah,
I'm gonna fix it for you. I'm gonna fix it for you.
Yeah. But chomps, yeah. And when you have these chemicals, they exist on a planet, you have ecological conditions that are changing as things develop, as the sun's mass changes, as the solar system develops and changes, and you get the possibility for things like simple
RNA.
polypeptides, RNA, exactly, your amyloids, these
Just
viroids, these little things that are not quite fully living things, but they're like little chemical things where you can mix chemicals together, and they form. Sometimes they'll straight up form protocells, and other times they'll form other structures that do a lot of the things living things do, but not quite all of them, and therefore like one of those things that beg the question, what defines a living thing and why do we include and exclude certain things. And they show a step between just chemicals and living things. So it's like living things are already made of chemicals. Chemicals exist out in the world. You can show this step between modern, more sophisticated versions of chemical living things and, just non-living chemicals in protocells and viroids and just, things that are basically just genetic material living outside of a cell, hence the 4 layers of organization, right?
yep.
Oh
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, like they just it's one of those something nothing can come from nothing. But it's like, chemical reactions, things in nature happen, they just float around. It's like,
Yeah.
a chemical reaction happens all the time in your body. It happens every time you do anything. Every thought is a chemical reaction. And so it's
So
like I
that's
don't
part of
understand
it
how they
for
cannot
sure. Yeah.
comprehend that
Yes.
part.
Yes, that's part of it for sure. And me and Mike have kind of talked about one of the other elements of it before, which is that chemistry is so broad, there's so many chemicals and elements that there's actually lots of ways that the first living or, semi-living thing that is our super ancient ancestor could have been. Maybe it wasn't just one thing. Maybe it was a
Yeah.
couple of different
That's kind of
things,
what I
you
think, is
know?
that there were, that's what I feel, is that maybe there were multiple. I mean, everything all started, as a eukaryote, as a single cell. But all those chemicals combining in their own ways, I think, is what really made lots of diversity. There's that theory where there's
Yeah.
the thermal vents under the water that are,
Yes. Yes, yes,
constantly
yes.
blowing out all kinds of stuff
Extremophiles.
that just mix
Yes.
and mix and mix, and you're going to get all that mixture. You're definitely going to have different combinations of the same chemicals. I mean, it's going to require all the same chemicals,
So it's
but it's like
fascinating
shooting
because
dice.
it does indeed produce a lot of the chemical elements necessary for life. And there are living things that live on it. And they're a super fascinating example of evolutionary trade off. They're crazy, crazy simple organisms. They are very non complex. Like some of them are just basically a membrane and very little other feature. But because of that, they can
They
survive
just
these
probably, thrive.
extreme conditions like extreme heat and extreme levels of toxic chemicals. And one of those, I think, is one of Mike's favorite, Asgard Archaea, which I'm glad we get to bring up because, Mike,
Yep.
you can kind of explain a little bit why the actin chain, right? That's what it's called, is so important, and the fact that they discovered that in Asgard Archaea before we move on to the Miller-Urey experiment a little bit.
Sure. There's basically the idea is that an archaea cell ate a bacteria, which became the mitochondria early on. But even prior to that, they found all of these proteins in the archaea,
Yes.
single-celled organisms,
Yeah.
very, very, what we consider very primitive. And they're also the things that live in like really crazy environments are usually archaea. I mean, they've got all kinds of. Anyway, we found actin, and actin is very much a part of eukaryotic cells and complicated animals like mammals, right? Actin is what allows you to move your muscles. It gives cells their shape. It guides basically guides material.
Characteristics of animals is they evolved from the group of protists that had the most effective and like energy consuming responses to stimuli. They were like really sophisticated responses to stimuli, but they took a lot of energy and took a lot of design. And actin is one of the major features that let them do it.
And they found a whole bunch more. Like ARPs are actin related proteins. They allow the cross-linking of fibers. And basically, this is all about creating not only organelles in the cell, but putting cells together to create organs. And the fact that those are in archaea, and I did not know this until you mentioned it yesterday. And this is another field of research that I want to get into. I'm starting with eukaryotic cell membranes and extracellular matrix. But this is the interesting part is when you, for every protein that you find in eukaryotes, there are little tiny fragments that you'll find either in bacteria or in archaea.
Yeah.
And this one is a big one because this was the beginning of multicellular life. That is the most exciting stuff. And this is real good evidence for evolution. Why would God use the same protein?
It makes it really likely that Asgard archaea is not only, it's very likely that it's got common ancestry with us. Good chance it is the ancestor. That's awesome. One of the ancestors that our species of eukaryotic cells evolved from. Really fascinating.
That's awesome.
Wesley Coleman asks, speaking of Tour, did you read his recent paper on abiogenesis? I saw the Facebook posts he made about it. They were dreck, not very good. So I'm imagining the paper itself was not very good, but I'll put it on my list. The way it works is when people ask me if I've read something, that thing goes near the top of the list. So that's on the top of the list now. I'll do it very soon.
Highlight
I'll say my initial impression was dreck.
Highlight my comment next.
Yeah, can do, Mike.
Yeah. Anyway, so sorry. we wanted a bonfire, and Friday night. I had this paper.
He produced a chart about probabilities of specific chemical interactions occurring, which stated they were highly improbable. It's an argument he's made before several times. Something like that.
That was what his whole side of the debate was. It's just it's not possible. This does this, and it's not possible. But I think Professor Dan did a good job with that. Like he kept his cool. That other lunatic just lunaticked on, like just constantly thought he was winning by yelling at him and saying, "Oh, this." It's just like
Mr. Farina. Yeah. I've seen so many videos now where the comment section is just Mr. Farina over and over again.
Yeah.
These are some great visuals you found on this paper, Mike. I'm loving it.
Yeah, the archaea. You can see, the archaea have some complicated cell types, and then here your actin fibers and actin related proteins crossing, sticking together. But they make these philopodia and all kinds of bizarre things. Like that's one cell right there, right?
Wow.
And you can, and this is
that's so crazy. That's what it really looks like, huh?
Yep, and these are protrusions. Basically, where like it pinches off a little piece and it forms its own little inner cell membrane. And if it's inside the cell, if it's outside the cell, it's like a philopodia or a protrusion. It'll crawl. But if it's inside the cell, you've got an organelle. So we've got the basic beginning of organelles inside of cells for eukaryotes. This is all about eukaryote evolution.
This is like also a primitive version of reproduction by budding, almost. It's very similar to that.
Right.
Well.
Yeah.
Is that just them connecting?
And then up here, Well,
So that's just
pinching
when
off.
they kind of, is that the
yeah, that's how you're that's how you're
You've probably seen pictures of Hydra in your high school biology books. That's how they reproduce. They have a polyp form and a medusa form, and they reproduce by
Oh
budding.
yeah, that all sounds familiar.
Super cool.
Yep. And all of these proteins here basically are found in some form in archaea in various forms. The ubiquitin, which is ubiquitous.
Yes.
And
I love
the escort system. Oh, there's just a ton of stuff here. This is a very exciting paper for me. So thank you for. Yeah, I had not thought.
I'm very glad I could
direct
you to it.
Yeah,
I am too blown away by this paper. It is amazing. It's talking about like this is like billions of years ago in our evolution, right, Mike? This isn't even millions. This is billions.
This is
billions.
When it was just water basically on our planet.
2 billion, 3 billion, maybe way back there. And this is incredible.
That's so awesome that we're able to see that, like that science has progressed so far that we can, which is why it's so hard for me to deal with creationists. But like, it is amazing that science has progressed so much that we can look at a gene that's from 3 million or 3 billion years ago. Like, and we can see the process of how it worked 3 billion years ago. That is so amazing.
Synthesize it with what we have on the screen right now, what Miller and Urey did 50 or so years ago, where they simulated the conditions on a primitive Earth, billions of years ago, and were able to produce amino acids and nucleotides and all kinds of relevant chemicals that are part of the major building blocks of the 4 main biomolecules.
So they weren't able to show how they connected, but they showed how they could form. Is that kind of
they showed how they could form, and they've done a lot of work since this happened, because this was 50 or so years ago.
I've heard of it
where they've shown that protocells can be formed by the kinds of molecules that are made in this experiment. So just to read a little portion of a textbook from my studies about Miller-Urey. Following the Big Bang theory of the universe, primitive Earth was formed approximately 4.5 billion years ago. If you're a creationist, you're just going to have to deal with that for now. We're reading a textbook page. It's the science textbook. It's not the special woo-woo one.
Oh, it's part of that conspiracy religion.
Yeah. The planet this time was an Sorry?
Do I not have a wrench?
You may not. I may not even know how to give wrenches to peeps. Yeah.
Well, you click on my name, and there's a little dot menu that you hit, and because I wasn't able to link the paper, maybe I can put it in private chat, and you can link it out there for me. Let me see here. There's a downloadable link for that paper. Okay,
and you'll get a window that opens up. You can give them different type of moderator.
I was in my presentation mode because I can't read the text.
I see.
Oh, how's everybody doing, by the way? I just kind of jumped in here. Like,
hey, Jeremy.
We're doing
good. Everybody's doing good today.
Doing okay. I actually sick to my stomach with what RFK Jr. is doing to medicine, but we won't get into that because that could be its whole
Well, if it makes you feel any better, I almost met a maker, if there is a maker in the world today.
Why would that make me feel better, Jared?
I got stabbed by a welding rod that wasn't welding yet, that just electrocuted the shit out of me. Like,
oh, no shit.
Yeah, wow. I thought for a second I was gonna, it was just like, oh, but I mean, it wasn't that bad, but boy, it scared the shit out of me. Like,
that's like 220.
Oh yeah.
Is that AC? Is that AC current in those welding rods, or is it direct?
I'm not sure what our welding.
I think it's.
It might be direct. But yeah.
Well, that's a little better than AC, but still, it can hurt like hell. And
it didn't feel very good. It was like a DC battery almost on your tongue.
Yeah.
Like I felt it. It was like, oh shit. He touched me with it first, and it went by me. He kind of glanced me, and I kind of felt a little shock. And then when my buddy went to start welding, he was kind of looking somewhere else, and he just poked his rod right into my hand, and it was just like, oh wee. Like,
was he trying to kill you?
Yeah, that's what I told him. I'd like, man, what are you trying to kill? Like, we had a discussion about it afterwards.
Back off.
I would have a
Yeah, it
discussion.
was like, whoa. It was really wakes you up, that's for sure, in the middle of a 10-hour shift.
I've been using a nail gun and been very careful about where we point the nail gun, even with all the safeties. Point it that away.
Well, I copy and pasted your link in the chat there, Mike. I'll figure out how to give people wrenches another time. But anyway,
insulted.
Big Bang.
I don't have a wrench. I'm taking your wrench away on my channel. There you go.
I will give you one, I promise. There are a few more deserving than yourself. And then we had an extremely hot molten mass bombarded by meteorites, which was therefore uninhabitable. What's interesting about that, so we'll take a pause from the textbook there. They mention the planet being bombarded by meteorites, and we now have found several specific meteorites that are just packed with biomolecules.
Yeah, I saw that.
Interesting.
Forrest has
I
talked
posted
about
an
that
article about it. I'm not as familiar with the details of it, so I won't go into it, but I'm pretty sure it had like almost all of the CHOPS molecules, which it mentions later here in the text. So to understand
that's awesome.
how
Forrest
life,
has talked about it a bunch.
Yeah, he probably has. He's so great. He's on top of so much biology.
He really is.
He is a biology professor now, I'm pretty sure. So of course he's on top of all of that stuff. So to understand how life can originate from non-living chemicals, we must first understand that we need to go from inorganic molecules to organic molecules, and then from organic molecules to primitive cells. The cell is the basic living unit of life and the stopping point for our investigation. And so what's interesting about that is what defines a cell can actually be really simple. It can be as simple as just like a lipid membrane and a polypeptide chain that is self-replicating inside of the lipid membrane. And you have something that's technically a cell and does everything a living cell does, like a modern living cell. When it grows, it reproduces, it metabolizes, takes the materials and expels waste. It has some level of organization. It does all the things a living thing ought to do, but it's nothing like it looks just like an extremophile under a microscope. It's just a little circle with barely a dot of any detail inside of that little, cytoplasm-like thing inside of the protocell. But it's still technically a cell, and it's pretty easy to get to. Like I said, you don't even need half of the modern biomolecules to make one of those. You can do it with just lipids and polypeptides, and that's not even including nucleotides and carbohydrates, two of the other main components. It's really fascinating how honestly actually achievable it is to go from chemicals and cells. And this is what Miller and Urey's experiment really helped demonstrate. They created this experiment using gases and steam and electrical pulses in a glass aperture, and they were able to create chirality, proteins of both chiralities, so usable chirality and nucleotides. And proteins and nucleotides, those make up an enormous amount of the dry weight of a cell. We had amino acids, proteins, nucleotides, and we found all these other experiments that have built on it since then, like the fact that you can make RNA, you can make nucleotides and DNA by just running an electrical current through sand. So there's all the ways that the basic materials can get constructed, and there's ways that they can be formed into protocells, and then evolution takes hold, and the protocells start evolving, and you end up with something like an archaea, a really simple extremophile that's built from all the chemicals that were poured out by the ocean vent and synthesized in the water, some hydrobiological interactions. There's so many theories that are viable. So when creationists say things like, you'll never get an answer from where life came from. Oh, we have too many answers. It's the opposite problem.
They can't even replicate it in the lab.
Yeah.
Like that's the one that always gets me. Like I didn't know a lot of this information until just now, but like it's always gets me. I mean, I know chemistry a little bit, so but not like this. But like, it's just amazing to me that like there's no evidence for there's no evidence for abiogenesis or life coming from nothing. But they're the ones that believe life came from nothing.
Yeah. The confirmation bias is like it's really pivotal to the whole situation. I honestly have kind of come to think that creationist psychology is the most important aspect of the debate. I don't
listen to themselves speak either.
Or anything at all.
We just covered a guy talking about a Miller-Urey, and that they were trying to find amino acids. And all they managed to do was find some amino acids. It's like,
right, that's all. Yeah,
how about that? You listen to yourself.
Shucks. Like, the building blocks of life. Whoops, it just had to happen. And it's like they're all nothing, but it's like they think that the world was made in 6 days by some magic voodoo that popped just life into the world in 6 days. Like it's just, but then they want to say that there's no evidence for abiogenesis or any of the processes involved in it. And it's like, you guys are lunatics.
Wesley Coleman asked about the handedness of sugars and the right-handedness of sugars and left-handedness of amino acids. And Miller-Urey created amino acids that were, racemic mixtures of both left-handed and right-handed. Yeah. But that's actually a feature. There are very complicated. Like if you start to learn organic chemistry, the first thing you learn, and I learned it when I was 12 years old, and I almost went nuts because I wanted to create a mathematics that created complexity of organic chemicals, because there are so many ways they can combine, and they create all these ring structures and heterocyclic rings and crazy things, right? And they actually right and left-handedness was probably a feature of abiogenesis that helped select the right things. However, the left-handed amino acids got selected because they created more stable proteins, because that's just the way they roll or wrap.
And it does help define the possibility space.
Yeah, and there are some animals that have right-handed amino acids. I think, is it insects or bacteria? There's a few, but for the most part, they got selected out over time.
That's what I love about biology. It's weird like that. There's always little exceptions.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's not built on any plan. Like there's no guidedness to evolution. Like it's random. It just works, and that's one they can never understand either. It's just like they want to say, "Oh, well, you just believe in random happenstance." I think that's fucking one.
To be fair, the randomness. The randomness was like historically a quintessential issue. Before people had natural selection to answer where the randomness could produce new features. So
it's kind of guided randomness. Like
it's not, there's no plan, but are random. But how nature selects which mutations are better for survival is not random. It has an ecological context. Yes. Yeah. Nature selects things just by being difficult to survive in, much the way humans select things when they shape ethnobiological, ethnozoological or ethnobotanical species like cats and dogs and pigs and cows and corn and hops and cannabis sativa and all those fun things. Nature can select things much the same way, just by being tough to survive in, not having enough resources for everything's offspring, all of their offspring to survive.
It goes back to the good enough for now
that's happening.
The good enough for now process of evolution. It'll work for now, so we're going to keep working on it. Like it'll get us by now, so that's all we need is just to live another generation. And then the next mutation kicks in, and then look, now we're living 3 or 4 generations.
Right.
Yeah, I'm so sad that I'm not. But something I thought I would never see is what AI is doing today. I really thought it was like 20, 30 years out in the future, when I'd be about 100. But it is just so cool that I got to live to see AI, and my hope is that it gets rid of us because humans suck.
Humans suck. Because humans do suck. We have destroyed so many things that we touch. Like even from back in the good old days, we even killed off all our ancestors. Like all
Right.
Neanderthal and everybody else. We
Yeah.
started 200,000
All the other
years ago
hominids.
destroying things.
Yeah, we killed
Yeah,
them
all
all.
the rest of the hominids in our group, you know, we're already destroying things then, and it just continued. The discovery of oil
I
was
dare
kinda,
to still be somewhat optimistic sometimes, but
there
creationists
are good
still
things
give me
though.
a lot of
You
reasons
know,
to
I
be.
saw that
But
the tigers in India are coming back. They've made a
oh yeah,
huge, like a huge recovery. I mean, you know, as far as tigers in India, like there's only like
Yeah.
500 or 600, but they went from a very small number, like 40 or 50, I think. And it's because of humans, you know, deciding to stop just slaughter them for no reason, and
right,
that helps, you know. And then
yeah,
now there's the conservation and all that kind of stuff going on, and it's just amazing. Some animals, you know, bald eagles were the same way. They made a huge comeback after, you know, people got involved, but it was people that started it. So there's that old chestnut.
yeah.
Yeah,
Are there
my
any points
optimism.
we want to touch on before we shift from biochemistry, biophysics, and physiology to behavior psychology and ethology?
Oh no. Yeah, no. Go ahead.
Yeah,
This will be interesting.
so this one I think is great because this is not only a bunch of fields that tell us how evolution shaped the human psyche, it also tells us a lot about why people lie about evolution and creationism and
Yeah.
why they're dependent on religion and all of the sociological, psychological, biological factors that go into constructing a worldview, like a science denial, you know, heavy control primary group worldview that's based on, you know, all these
A book
science
from
denial
3,000 years ago.
techniques that we're going to outline in some of these slides over here, like common cognitive distortions, the Flick model with fake experts, impossible standards, all those fun things. And of course,
Ooh.
this little chart with all of the classic
Are those
logical
fallacies?
fallacies that
Oh
people
yeah.
commit. So let's
That's
go
nice.
back first and talk a little bit first about evolutionary psychology and how evolution makes sense of human behavior. And
So is that
one of my favorite experts on this subject is a guy named Robert Sapolsky. And so
Yeah.
my answer to that question can almost just be go watch every video Robert Sapolsky's ever made because they're
Yeah,
all
read his book.
perfect. Yes. So
Definitely
good.
read his book.
is that like the
So we can
psychology
see a lot of
that's like,
analogs for human behavior in other primate species. We see culture, we see society, we see sexual dynamics, we see competition and cheating and cooperation and complex feedback loops of behavior? It is freaking awesome. It's so cool how primatologists have made sense of a lot of human behavior by studying our sibling species. And I freaking love, you know, the biopsychosocial model. And I've been studying it a lot in college, and it is one of my favorite things about evolutionary science. So this slide is huge to me on so many levels. Is what a major point of what I'm
so
talking about.
that's kind of
And
like
I really am
when
going to
a
end up diving into a lot of these sciences more deeply, like ethology and cognitive ethology and evolutionary neuroscience. Evolutionary neuroscience is another thing Robert Sapolsky covers again. So again, can't recommend him high enough. Get some Sapolsky in your veins. Inject him.
What is
so
that?
is this like the topic that would be like when the bushes rustle, if it's a wind or if it's a lion,
Yes,
like
yes, yes,
type of
yes,
behavioral
100%. Yes. So as you have organisms, they are organized, but neuroplasticity and just the way neuroanatomy is constructed means all kinds of behavior is possible. You have anhedonia, you have the opposite. You have hedonistic behavior where animals do things that are real kooky and wild, often because they've, you know, eaten some psychoactive mushrooms. Mike knows all about that, am I right? Or they've had some alcohol, or, you know, the various things that affect their neurocognition, their mental activity, right? And so as you see these animals doing these different behaviors, that is one of the ways evolution can be driven. Organisms can get geographically separated into new areas, and they have to be able to do new behaviors. They have to be creative enough to try new stuff out, to pick up this roly-poly and say, you know what, instead of eating this thing, I'm gonna use it to help protect my little mushroom crop that I've got going over here. Or maybe even just build a relationship with him. I just think he's cute. I just think he's neat. I let him roll around in my fur. And it turns out by doing that, he gives me a camouflage benefit, because things see me, they think I'm just like a furry log or a fuzzy stump or something when they see the little roly-poly rolling around in me. Actually, there are sloths species that have that very real adaptation. They have moths and other insect species that live on them, and it makes them look like they're kind of just a log. It's a really good camouflage on. Yeah, no, it's really funny.
Wow, that's super cool.
Yes, and it's another example of how ethology is so evolutionary.
And then how it specializes.
Mike, do you have something you want to share on your screen again there?
Like how pandas
this is Robert Sapolsky. So he wrote a book called Behave. That's the latest. Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers, a Primate's Memoir, a Neuroscientist's Unconventional Life Among the Baboons, Monkey Love and Other Essays, The Trouble with Testosterone. I have to read that one. I didn't realize he did that.
The Monkey Love one, I'm sure, is hilarious, because what I was talking about before, about how there's sexual analogs, you see how things like masturbation formed in our primate ancestors just through ethological interactions. Like Sapolsky gives the example of, a capuchin sitting there, and an attractive capuchin female goes, sauntering on by, but of course the big dominant male's behind her too. So the capuchin sees the attractive female, and he has the neuron activation, but he also sees the big male, so he doesn't have any big outward reactions. He doesn't puff himself up and try and get the lady to go with him. No, he waits for them to wander around, and then he goes off to another area. And he handles business, right? And it shows the beginning of a fantasy life of the organism, imagining that it's copulating with the female. Oh man, so fascinating. Sapolsky's great. Hey Ryan, good to see you. Always great to have you in the live chat. I love watching you on the Daily Atheist Morning Show almost every week. Great to have you in the chat. And everybody else, I haven't said hi to yet. Wesley and Chris and everybody else.
Evolutionary psychology kind of gets you into the ideas behind some extended synthesis a little bit.
Yeah.
And where you have top-down things like behavior in animals driving evolution, that sort of thing. So it's hierarchical, and it works from the bottom up and the top down and every level in between at the same. So it's a very, very complicated thing. Evolutionary psychology, that really pisses some biologists off.
Because psychology in general has some major issues, and I can state them in 2 words: Jordan Peterson.
Oh
yeah. 2 other words would be:
psychology can be amazing. At its worst, it can be terrible. It can be so bad.
I can do it with 3 words: just so story. Like we can come up with a lot of just so stories. We gotta have evidence for this.
That's what I don't like about philosophy. Also, is that it's just a bunch of gibberish. Like I like hard sciences. Like I like things I can touch and see and reproduce. Philosophy is just like, I'm just not smart enough for it, I guess. Like
philosophy is another one of those things where it can be done really well and it can be done really badly. When it's being done really well, it helps you ask really good, thought-provoking questions. When it's done really badly, it helps you answer questions in a way that you already thought was right.
That's the thing with philosophy. It's big on asking questions, but not giving answers. So
you
still need science for the answers.
Oh yeah, Chris. We talk about it all here. Biology is very much the science of sex, and sexual data is huge for evolution. It's like one of the core things of evolution is like amphibians gaining reproductive advantages because now we don't have to reproduce in water anymore. Some species, some ancestor way back evolved the ability to fertilize the egg inside of themselves. So now they've got the 100% humidity environment necessary to fertilize an ova inside of their own body. And gradually that behavior gets more and more refined. Behavior and sexual reproduction. And I can tell a fun anecdote about Darwin and the peacock. Is anybody familiar with the Darwin and the peacock anecdote? That would be a fun one to bring up while we're on this
I don't
subject.
think I've heard.
Sexual selection is one of those screwy things where it doesn't seem to make any sense until you realize all it has to do is reproduce. If it gets eaten by a fox afterwards, it doesn't really matter. The idea was it found that mate. That's the important part.
And that's part of what that simulated evolution experiment proved too, especially with the kill function segment of it. We'll watch it later if there's time. Probably won't be, but it proved that all it has to do is reproduce, and that heavily influences what is existing in the next generation. Yep. But the peacock story is that it made Darwin wrote that it made him sick to look at it. Oh, hey, Katrina.
Peacock?
Katrina's in the chat. Good to see it. Yeah. Darwin said that the peacock made him sick. Yeah, from the debate. Yeah. She's in the chat. Darwin said that the peacock made him sick to look at. He wrote in his diary that it made him feel physically ill because he couldn't figure out why it had this big, bushy, colorful tail feather, and it tortured him. It made it bad at flying. It made it clunky to move around on the ground. It made it more detectable to predators.
Why would anything do that, right?
Yeah.
Until you realize it had babies. That's all that mattered.
In the peafowl diversity in the avifauna of peafowl, surviving long enough to pass on your reproductive material is success. Your genetic material it's like the saying, once again, Sapolsky, he uses this saying a lot. He didn't coin it, but he uses it. Sometimes an egg is a chicken's way of making or a chicken is an egg's way of making another egg.
Exactly. Oh yeah,
birds
birds have all kinds of diversity in their in male, female. There's crazy amounts.
Yes,
birds and some fish and stuff are real big on sexual selection. Yep,
big time, 100%. Yes,
and it's amazing.
They have very unique and specific behavior. And that's a big part of this slide is the sexual behavior of species like birds who, they mate at very specific times. There's very specific courtship rituals, which if they aren't fulfilled, you aren't going to get a successful sexual
from
contact.
A million different things too. Some are that the male will build a super cool nest and be like, "See, look how pimp I am," or others it's more of a physical thing, like a robin or a cardinal.
That's not unique to birds either. Males do all kinds of incredible stuff to achieve mating in nature across all kinds of species.
That's
true.
Of
course, sexual reproduction is very kaleidoscopic. There are other species where there's very little effort to it. The female's just sprays a bunch of eggs out.
And don't forget hormones. Don't forget hormones. They'll make males and females do some really stupid things just so they can reproduce. It overrides a lot of common sense, safety, everything else.
It's amazing what testosterone does to it.
It does.
Bear. Think about predatory animals, like when a lion wants to thinks he's ballsy enough to take over a whole pride, and then walks into an old dude that just lays him out. That's all hormones and testosterone just pumping through. Like, I can do it, and then he gets almost killed. You know, like, it's amazing what it'll make. Or like bears, big Kodiak bears that are just 1,200-1,500 pound animals, and just slug it out for a few hours and see who wins. You know, it's amazing what that sexual drive will do in groups. You know, elk are another good example. Those bulls will fight for hours and hours and hours. Sometimes the other ones will die hooked together. But, they've got that.
They introduced the concept of estrus, the fact that they're just putting chemicals out into the environment, and that is like signals to all kinds of species. It's danger signals, but it's also attracting signals to species. To females of that species, because when they see a male dominate another male, it gets them ready for some fun action. That's why if you pick up a date, take her to an MMA fight. She'll probably be raring to go.
Oh, my wife would not want to do
that. Smell it.
Right? So this is kind of like, this is a little bit of the biology side of, the behavior, psychology, and ethology, evidence of evolution. And then I do have some slides here about a historical aspect of these fields. And this is that over the last couple of hundred, maybe 1,000 or so years, there's been a shift in all kinds of sciences, most of the sciences, if not all of them, between a spiritualistic model to an empiricist model. So, like, we used to think that diseases were caused by bad spirits, by demons, possessing you.
Bad air.
Yes, the miasma theory.
Oh, that's where the bless you comes from too, right? When you sneeze, that you're sneezing out the devil or whatever. That.
Yeah. Your soul was temporarily.
That's where it gets in. As your orifices is where the devil gets into you. So you were blessed anytime an orifice did anything.
And if you'll know that we treated these things with like all kinds of bizarre methods, shamanistic rituals and dances and spells and incantations. And all kinds of wild behavior like that. But some of it also gets kind of darker. Like, you'll see some of the tools on that table are maybe a not so great aspect of the history of like science here. And I wouldn't really call it science. It was just like, this is human behavior. We're seeing that people have mental distress, and we're trying to fix it. And we're coming up with an answer of, okay, drill a hole in the subject's head. Okay, now the subject is very subdued and calmed. I guess that worked. Like, no, I think the subject is calm because you just punched a hole into his head. So we had these shifts from time. Yeah,
sometimes it works.
Right. We had a shift from thinking about things this way to being empirical and saying, well, it's not. We can't measure the spirit going out there. I'm not sure this method is working that well. I observe a lot of drooling in the patients afterwards.
A lot of drooling after his lobotomy.
Yeah, they start saying words that don't make so much sense anymore.
The Egyptians did like dental reconstruction and things, like where they'd stitched things into their teeth. The Egyptians did all
kinds of crazy stuff to bodies. They were obsessed with bodies. Like they were some of the early anatomists.
People were definitely
studying bodies, and they were doing like ritualistic anthropological things with bodies, and it was a part of their religious culture and how they justified their godhood state of their leaders. It was really fascinating.
It was, those people were just built different. Like, what kind of person nowadays? I couldn't go through someone jamming shit in my gums trying to give me teeth. I mean, no medicine, no nothing. I'm sure they didn't have. I mean, maybe they had a potion that they drank that almost killed them before they did it. But wow! Even just waking up from that, if that's what they did, and you have wires or whatever they used in their mouths, like that would be terrible.
It's a matter of speed. We were just talking about. Doctors were praised for their speed at doing amputations because without anesthetic, every second that it took less to get it done was
Oh
a big
yeah, think
difference.
about those poor bastards in the Civil War where they were, amputating in the field that were just whoop like, oh man.
Yeah, so that is one of the areas where it gets a little dark, and this is one of the other areas, and this is where I gotta get a little somber.
That's what I always bring up when they mention the good old days, and it's like, tell me when these good old days actually
when
were.
They burned witches and owned other people.
A lot of good scientific men and women died horribly for daring to defy the church, for daring to defy the church's views on science and astronomy and evolution and medicine and so many things.
Or their own religions.
In this image, we see one of the most infamous instances of this. The Italian astrologist Giordano Bruno, who was brutally and horrifically burned at the stake for daring to defy geocentrism and to say that the world was not the center of the universe and that we orbited around our sun. His only true crime was being decades, if not centuries, ahead of his time scientifically.
Wow.
And he paid a horrific price for it that no human being ever should have paid. Yes, he was a philosopher, but he was basically also gosh, can you even call him an amateur astronomer if he figured out heliocentrism?
There's something interesting, but you'll have to fact check me on this. But when the Catholic Church finally decided they like science, and I forget who it was, but they were having trouble with Easter, figuring out when Easter was because of the phases of the, I don't know. Because it had to be, it was a calendar problem, right? And so the astronomer that worked that out suddenly became a favorite of the Catholic Church because he figured it out for them. And so they're like, oh, this science stuff ain't so bad. We can figure out when Easter is.
Make him a saint.
Yeah, make him a saint, So they got a little bit warmer to the idea of science, but
it's terrible that he is remembered for his horrible end because he should be remembered for the fact that he was so avant-garde. But it also serves a purpose. It reminds us to question authority and to not allow authority to have powers like this, to have the power to silence thought that they disagree with permanent solutions, especially ones so horrific and inhumane. And I think, to an extent, a lot of other scientists have been really badly treated by the creationist community, none so more than maybe our buddy Mr. Darwin himself. Darwin has taken a beating over the years by the creationists. They call him racist. They call him incestuous. They call him all kinds of horrific things. They say he was Hitler's favorite person, which is absurd beyond belief. I mean, the things they have done to drag Darwin's name through the mud are really upsetting. And no, Darwin doesn't deserve it at all. Totally agreed, Wesley. Darwin doesn't deserve it. Leave my man Chucky alone.
Mary Schweitzer, they have ran her name through the mud.
Yes.
They have beaten her hard work and everything that she worked for and just beaten it down so much that it's almost not even worth talking about anymore. When they bring up the DNA and dinosaur bones and all this, and then they say, well, they found them, blood cells, they found them. And it's like, no, they found leftover iron. We talked about it last time, and it's just like Mary Schweitzer has been just ran through the mud.
Yeah.
And her hard work and everything she did to even show that soft tissue was amazing. And they're just like, oh yeah.
She took the high road on it all. No. She said, hey, I'm a scientist and I'm a Christian. Shame on you for how you talk about me. You got to give it to her. She took the high road. Yep.
She actually did, and she's done it multiple times actually, where she said, I'm definitely a Christian and a religious person, and It's terrible. Even after she says, my research does not show what you were trying to make it say. And she talks about how she doesn't even care how old the Earth is because, but her data is, enough that says that dinosaur bones are 65 million years old, and she found certain things in it.
She
really
pointed
out they're ignoring
they're
ignoring all that she discovered.
Yeah, she spends a lot of her interviews now pointedly not talking about those issues and instead talking about the scientific methodologies that she finds interesting.
Can't talk about her subject. Like, that's terrible, though. She should not have to be able to talk about the amazing things that she's figured out.
The same things have kind of happened with Francis Collins and Ken Miller a little bit, and Ken Wolgamuth, Dr. Joel Duff. And these are all like theists. They're devout believers. They love God, as far as I know, and it's
but
weird.
It just doesn't go with with their narrative.
Yeah,
it doesn't go along with
out,
the 6 days magical creation.
Or was it I think Objective Ethics that the whole idea that it's an anti-God thing, it goes completely against what the creationists will bring up when they cite all these scientists that made great discoveries who believed in God. It is not an anti-God. It's what you figured out in the lab or in the field, and what your beliefs were had nothing to do with your results unless you intentionally falsify things, and that doesn't make you a good scientist. A good scientist follows the science, and you can still go to church.
It's literally this first cognitive distortion on this chart of the 12 most common cognitive distortions. Mind reading. When they say that, evolutionists just want to replace God. They just want a view of the universe that doesn't have God as a necessary being. They're mind reading. They're projecting a desire to interpret the data in a specific way onto their opponent. And we're really not doing that. We're following the evidence using a scientific method. And I think that's pretty much what the entire scientific community agrees what we're doing, and why, evolution continues to be supported by so much data.
Well, that's what theists were saying. They were studying God's design or nature or whatever they wanted to call it, and they were learning more about God. They weren't getting rid of God. They were learning what God did in their opinion. And so finding test results to whichever ends they were wasn't going against God in any way in their minds.
Oh, an interesting point about this too, before we move on from this slide to the next one, is that not only were Christian scholars big on developing medicine and science, Islamic scholars were too.
Yeah, and they still are. Chinese and a lot of these ancient civilizations, they went about things and discovered things, sometimes by accident, sometimes through research. And that was just like, oh, okay, that's how things are. And they went right on about their day. It wasn't now for some it might change their worldview, but for most, they went right about their day, just accepting something new they had learned.
It's too bad that creationists can't do that. Like, they just refuse. Like, and the young Earth ones are the worst, because it's like, you people, you can be told 10,000 different ways. There's a particular person I always bring up, but it's like 3,000 debates have all told him, in 3,000 different ways, evolution, this is how it works. And he's still nope, completely dishonest, and it's really sad that they can't.
We covered that last night, didn't we, Austin? Right at the end of the stream was that no, none of that applies, not in any way, shape, or form. It's just rhetoric. That's all it is.
Yeah. So Wesley, you make a good point here. Yes, people on every side of any scientific or political issue can use these cognitive distortions. That's why empiricism and rationalism are so good, because you don't go by people's arguments and their interpretations. You go by data, which is much more reliable. You're making good points here in the chat, Wesley. It's good to have you. Wesley, you also said Islamic scholars did a lot, but it was mostly due to rediscovering class. Yes, classical philosophy. The Greeks did a buttload too. This is the area where like Aristotle himself was coming out and was starting like establish natural history, what would eventually go on to become biology, as like this real human endeavor that we're still.
It's amazing that
like
those people were able, either they were so bored or had a great view, but were able to see planets and things and understand that there were other planets out there moving around.
And they named them after their gods.
And
so
they
once
named
again,
them.
it wasn't
they were
anti-God.
able to actually name it. Like,
they were naming them Jupiter and Venus and everything. They didn't. It wasn't anti-God. That is just a poor argument.
I am a really big nerd. And
Islamic scholars. Islamic scholars. How about algebra? Algebra?
Yeah.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Algebra. Yeah.
But it's like I'm a really big. I've just recently got into the hobby of astrophotography, and I've been really following the late. So I don't know if you guys saw the meteor shower that just happened, or that all of the planets are lining up right now. Like this whole month of August, like you can see Jupiter. I see Jupiter and Saturn every morning when I go to work.
Canada's ruining our view, though, isn't it, Mike?
Yeah, I live in Minneapolis underneath the Canadian cloud and lights and oak trees, so I can't see a damn
horrible.
I haven't seen a star for 20 years.
Yeah, I live in Maine.
Just a quick back. You mentioned something that I almost never get to talk about, so I want to bring this up. Mike, you mentioned algebra. One of my favorite Islamic scholars was a guy called Al-Ghazawi. Does anybody recognize Al-Ghazawi? Almost nobody knows Al-Ghazawi. So he's fascinating, not just because he was a polymath who studied, chemistry and biology and all these interesting sciences before they were even called by these formal names that we now have, like back when they were just called, natural history and stuff like that. He is pivotal in developing the concept of the polymath itself. He wanted to be a polymath from the time he was a child and just studied nonstop everything he could get his hands on. He learned to read what written scripts there was very early and learned as many languages as he could. He knew like 20 plus languages and was schooled in like all kinds of different fields of science. And he was like from the Islamic golden age, basically. Yeah, Al-Ghazali. Yeah. Oh gosh. He was
and
so
if you
cool.
accept
He
microevolution, you
as a
accept
child
evolution.
to study science and anatomy and to try to be a polymath myself. And he has inspired the world greatly.
I'm trying to learn.
Any change to any physiology is evolution. Call it whatever you want. It's evolution. So to deny that it's happening when you know it's happening, even if you give it another name, is just denying evolution. It doesn't matter what you call it. These things are changing, and as Mike has talked about a lot, it's happening right now. It's happening in you and in me, and it's happening in our children and everything else.
Yeah.
I don't know if I agree that scientific discovery did shift to the West. I think it's still happening all over the world, Katrina.
It's just where theocracies shut it down.
Particularly in the East. The Japanese and the Chinese are really creating a lot of new work.
The Nordic states too. The Nordic states are doing a lot of cool stuff with AI, and they recently did this amazing study about niche partitioning, where they were able to observe a mollusk species evolving via the niche partitioning mechanism because nutrients levels in a lake were restored. So there was enough for them to partition again, and they watched the new species come out. And that was in Norway and Sweden. And Norway and Sweden and the Nordic states, they have great public infrastructure for like colleges and getting college education, and they spend a lot on scientific research and development. So I think scientific discovery is happening all over the place. I think it is still happening here in the West too. That's of course. I don't think it shifted over completely. I think it's happening everywhere.
Less today than it was before last January. So,
there's a whole political discussion that can be had about that for sure. But
A friend of mine is suffering from funding cuts basically already.
Yeah.
In her PhD program. It's amazing how quickly that screwed things up in the colleges and research labs.
Yeah.
But we can thank our great leader.
Oh man, I'm trying not to focus too much on that right now, but yeah, it is
I want to make
worrying
America great like it was in the 50s when we had 10-inch screens, black and white TV with lots of snow, and if you moved wrong, the channel selector would get dust in it and it would like go off the station and you get snow. I want to go back to the good old days like that.
The good old days.
Good old days.
Yeah, and you only had one channel or two channels, right? And channel 3 and channel 6.
Better like what's on, right?
Yeah, read a book.
You gotta like what's on. Good old days.
I have never heard that
when
before.
TVs were like 500 pounds and you had to drag it like with a big dump truck, basically. Like my grandparents had TVs that were ginormous, and they only had like a 20-inch screen.
Christianity was no better than in Islam and some of them repressive things. The whole idea of not having people be able to read the Bible and only what the priest or the Pope or whatever told you was in it went a long way too. There was even laws that you could not put the Bible in other languages, and so that they tried really hard to keep that repressed too. So it's not unique to Islam. It's a thing religions do when they want to have power.
Well, when Islam got crazy religious, right? That's when the scientific everything shut off in the Middle East, basically, and that happened around the 12th or 13th century.
It's all about power, right? You keep the masses uneducated. You shut down all the schools. Like, what's going on here? And that's what happens. Yeah, you don't have access to the information anymore, and you have to rely on what dear leader tells you.
I mean, that happens in all churches. Like I grew up in a Mennonite church, and I bet you only half of those people, maybe not even half, actually read anything in the Bible. Yeah, they just waited for the preacher to tell them.
For the sermons, yeah.
And that would be the one that they would think up, or that they would be like, oh, I want to read John 3:16 because the preacher was talking about it today. Mm-hmm. And they would forget about Exodus, 20:21. It talks about beating your slaves. Like they seem to all forget about those verses.
Yeah, there's some pretty tough verses in the Bible that are kind of rough for like interpreting. Not very nice to women. Not very nice to.
Well, it's like they're anti-abortion, but the Bible says abortion's okay if God.
Yeah.
It's just those little things, those little knickknacks.
So what I'm thinking as I look at this this slide here is that this could easily be its whole own episode. We could definitely go through each one of these, and we could talk about how several different worldviews involved in the whole discussion do them. Negative focus. We could talk about how Mennonites probably have a very negative focus on anything that doesn't conform to their worldview. Jeremy, do you think that's accurate?
I definitely experienced that in my life.
But what I would say
is
religions. What's great
we don't
about
want to just pick on religions, Austin. It's any group 100%. That says we're right and you're wrong. That can apply across the board. Just to be fair.
So that's what's great about this is we can use this chart not just to talk about what we think, but you can take it yourself and look at it and think, okay, how might I be mind reading, or how might I be should thinking, or how might I think these people be should thinking? You use it as your own heuristic. Don't go by just what we think. We'll talk. Yeah, for sure. Just apply it to us too, by all means. If you do, and somebody isn't full of nonsense, they might either admit, well, I don't have an answer to that, or they will be like, I do have an answer to that, and they'll have, they'll try their best to explain it to you. They'll give you some data maybe to back it up. That is totally fair to do, 100%. And that is where this chart is very useful. This chart is very useful. And of course, this chart
The
is very
fallacies,
useful.
yeah,
All three of these charts are very useful. I recommend you add them to your repertoire, copy and paste them with the print screen while you're watching this on your YouTube channel, and put them on your background, put them on your back burner, and just think about them. Whenever you come across things, pull these up and look at them and do some critical thinking. Critical thinking is so important, right?
It is.
So Flick, this is a good model. This is a great model. I have yet to come across a model that's better for this kind of like trying to make a phylogeny for science denial techniques and propaganda. There's other ones, but I don't think they're better. I think this one's the best one, and this is the Flick model. And Flick stands for fake experts, logical fallacies, which is the next one, and the next slide, right? And impossible expectations, cherry picking, and conspiracy theories. And it gets into like specific forms of this, and each of these things. Like there's more specific forms of fake experts, the bulk fake experts method, where you have dozens of fake experts, like magnetology, all these magnetology cults that have dozens of physicists that say magnets can do all these things that absolutely magnets cannot do. They can improve your health. Spend all your money on my incredible magical magnets. They'll make you poop 25 times a day if that's what you want to do, And
I can teach you to knock someone out without touching them.
Right, yeah. Yes.
Well, actually, magnets, if they're strong enough and you put them alongside your head, you can have a spiritual experience with magnets.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
There are some ways. So often, one of the ways these organizations use they use a little bit of truth like that, that is something that's true about magnets, and they extrapolate from that there's all these other crazy things that they can do. So
I'm surprised the kids haven't figured that out to get high.
Right.
That's oh God, I shouldn't have said that out loud. Now they're gonna do it.
They probably have to be big magnets, though, right? Like
I would think so.
Oh, they gotta be big ones, powerful
pretty
magnets.
Big ass magnets.
Yeah.
I don't think you're getting one of those little 5-pounders.
Yeah, they start to mess with your neurons, the impulses in your neurons.
Because of those chemical reactions we talked about that
it makes you high.
In your brain.
Yeah, it makes you.
Yeah, that's super interesting.
That is.
Yep, and then so you got your fake experts, and then after that is logical fallacies, and that's this next slide, which there's all.
Gets it. That's always the one I think of. He is the worst person. That's a fallacy. That's a fallacy. Don't you know that's a
He loves the fallacy, indeed, which is itself a logical fallacy. Yeah. We're getting into some real deep philosophical weeds where we're talking about the processes of thinking itself and metacognition and metaphysics and stuff. And there are some great YouTubers on the metaphysics subject. I personally don't really love metaphysics that much, but I have met a few YouTubers who are passionate about it, and they have made me like it a little bit. You guys might know, Leo Filius, I think his name is.
Yeah, I'm friends with him on Facebook, actually.
Yeah, he's he is an actual metaphysicist, and he has great content on his channel.
He does cosmology.
He debated the kindergarten dropout a few times and did really well.
He did. There was a couple of debates that he was in that were Nephilim 3, I think, is one that he debated.
Yeah, he's really good. But logical fallacies, we've got the slippery slip fallacy, the slippery slope fallacy.
Like a cuppy.
That's where people say things like, and this, I feel like this is one that's used in evolution debates a lot. It's both should thinking, and it's an appeal to consequences, and it's kind of a slippery slope fallacy where it's like, oh, if you believe in evolution, then you believe you're just a monkey and you should go and be hedonistic and rob and steal. And my response is, even if I were a monkey, I wouldn't do that. And monkeys don't really do that a lot. They kind of figured out, just because you can kill things doesn't mean it's a good way to keep stability unless everybody's killing everything.
Those people are the same ones that say that if it wasn't for Jesus, they'd be out murdering people.
Right, yeah.
And robbing and stealing.
It does kind of cut both ways, yeah.
It's only because of them being the savior, having the Lord pumping through them that they, he's the one that keeps them away from doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, this is another chart where, again, don't just listen to us and what we think about all of these fallacies. Look at this yourself and think, does creationism do this? Does evolution do this? Does climate denial do this? Does vaccine denial do this? And I think you'll find that for a lot of them, the answer is yes. Flat Earth does a lot of them. There's all these denial kind of families out there on the internet, and they use a lot of the techniques on this chart heavily. So, familiarize yourself with it. Do some of your own critical thinking about it. Oh man, again with the critical thinking, and I'm gonna reinforce critical thinking a lot on this channel, and I'm gonna reinforce a lot what scientific data is, which we all know what scientific data is, right?
Oh yeah, I'm gonna have you send me that chart later.
Will do.
I can't really see it.
I am ready and willing to send any individual graphic in this presentation to anybody who wants it, as well as the entire presentation itself if they want it, and if they want to use it and go through and build on it, because I am still going through and building on it, adding stuff all the time.
Well, I just I want to be able to zoom in on it and really because I don't want my phone at the moment. I can't really.
But scientific data, right? It's something that either supports or does not support a hypothesis. It's a repeatable thing. So, like, when it comes to evolution, some of that scientific data is genetic similarity. And genetic similarity definitely supports evolution. And I feel like it's one of the crux issues. It's one of the quintessential issues in the evolution creation debate is that creationists are using a different definition for scientific data. Their definition for scientific data is way more strident, and it definitely falls under the impossible expectations kind of technique, in my opinion, which is the third one. So we got fake experts, we covered logical fallacies. The next one is impossible expectations. And I think that the quintessential misunderstanding between what scientific data is a great illustration of how the impossible expectations tactic is being deployed.
Like when they say that there's no fossil evidence in transition. Like, because I want to see every animal in every transition through the entire transition.
And I think that's also just a little bit of confirmation bias too, but yes.
Oh, I bet that is. Yeah, sorry, if I'm like going, I can't really.
No. You're totally right. Confirmation bias, again, it's this force that it pervades into many of these techniques. It's just a tendency people have to see data that supports their current worldview and recall it, and to ignore data that doesn't, and to forget it very swiftly.
Even when it's completely wrong, and they just eat it up. And then you have people like AIG that are reinforcing that wrongness, or I guess like you get groups like Ken Hovind that when he's talking to his flock, I'm sure is just driving in all this nonsense that people are just going to continue to remember. Because my family's really bad about it. Like, they don't want to look at anything that's real data, anything that's actually been peer reviewed or gone through any kind of real critical thinking. It's just, oh, well, I heard this on AIG, so they got to have
it. And that also ties into the next one, the first C in Flick, the cherry picking, which is major. It's huge.
Yeah.
They cherry pick every example of new genetic information. They cherry pick the nihilase. They cherry pick the long-term evolution experiment. They say all that stuff doesn't count over and over again. The goalposts are always shifting. It's one of the more frustrating. They quote mine. They cherry pick. It does make dealing with a lot of them very frustrating. A lot of the ones that are more bad faith and dishonest, they cherry pick a lot, and they won't accept any data from outside what they've cherry picked.
I've been covering creationists for decades, and if you put any of the mechanisms to a creationist, even Hawaiian shirt guy, he will accept it, and then they'll say that's not evolution. So
not evolution.
It's pointless. It's like Simos and I were talking about. And Otangelo just put it on Austin's post. I accept microevolution, but not macroevolution.
But not macro.
Well, you're accepting all the same mechanisms. There's
Everything's
nothing,
the same,
nothing different. It's all the same.
The process is all the same. They don't ever understand that, though. Like, they just think that that's one of those things that they think is an I gotcha. It's like,
it's a different thing. It's not a different thing. Evolution is evolution. If this does this, that's evolution. It doesn't matter what you call it. Yeah, doesn't matter what you call it.
That's another thing that where the change in the kinds, where it's like, oh well, it's a lion and it's a cat, so it's all the same kind, and that's just adaptation.
Call it a lollipop, okay? Yeah, that's a lollipop, but it's evolution, okay? To the rest of us, it's evolution.
Adapted, but it can't be that they came from another animal that kind of was a cat. And kind of wasn't a cat, and then now they're cats. Oh no! Or the same with humans. And
they cherry pick around speciation a lot.
Yeah,
and
when you have gray hair,
reproductive compatibility,
and when these guys got gray hair and they've been saying the same thing, and word for word, mind you, I did a video with Doc Dino, and I played a video from 10 years ago, and another video from very recently. Ken Ham says the exact same words.
Oh, I don't doubt that at all.
Exact same word. The sentences and the little jokes and everything else haven't changed. You can do the same thing with Hawaiian shirt guy or all the rest of them.
Hawaiian shirt guy's the one I've heard do that a lot.
A good presentation when you really practiced it. You get it down. It's a powerful thing. You get a rhythm going. You don't even have to think as much almost anymore. You just
no reason to break your stride even.
Let it flow. Yeah.
And when they've been doing it that long, they're not going to change. They're stuck deep in it. And you know what I say? I really don't. Yeah, if it wasn't for some of the problems we've been having with who people are voting for by their lack of education, it really wouldn't bother me that much, because back in the day, nobody cared what Ham and Hovind were doing, really. I mean, on a small scale, yes. Now it's on a larger scale. That's where it's troubling, because as Mike just said, somebody just lost funding. I mean, these are the things they're cutting, right? And we all know, meanwhile, the rich people aren't taking in any hits, right? Why not? And I point out, back in the day, rich people used to kind of do things, right? They would build Carnegie Hall or whatever, right? And they'd put their name on it. And everybody would say, Rockefeller, whatever. Build something, right? Where is the Bezos Bridge?
Yeah. It's all going to be named Trump now.
You know what I mean?
It's all going to be named Trump.
So, I wouldn't care. If Trump himself paid for it and built me a new bridge and wanted to put his name all over it, that's fine, right? But they don't do that. You don't see that anymore. They're putting all that money offshore, and like Ken Ham, speaking of, he's got that plane that flies to the Canaries or wherever it is where they stash all their money. It lands just long enough to refuel and leaves. I'm sorry, but if I'm going to a tropical island, I'm gonna be on the beach for at least a few hours.
Yeah, you got to go all the way over there.
Yeah, you don't land, and it takes about 15 minutes to refuel or whatever it is, and then you're taking off again. It's like, wait a minute. We know what you're doing.
You want to say goodbye to Katrina?
Yeah, I was just going to say, Katrina's got to get going. Thank you so much for stopping by. It's always nice to have you. You're a very sweet, lovely person. And I know you're a lot more intelligent than a lot of other young Earth creationists out there. So I got to for sure give you props for that. And I want to say, Katrina, I hate to do your branding for you for free. So if you like this, maybe slide me a couple dollars. But I think I came up with a nice little slogan for you. smashing glass ceiling and teaching healing.
Oh, there you go.
Cool.
Keep it up.
Yeah.
Keep smashing glass ceilings and teaching healings.
We'll see you later, Katrina. Good talking to you.
There's 3 levels to this creationist stuff that are really important. Like, okay, if you have a busy intersection by a school and you got crossing guards, right? A whole bunch of crossing guards. And the kids basically depend on those crossing guards to keep them from getting killed. And then one of the crossing guards goes crazy for some reason and gives you bad information, right?
Yeah.
So everybody starts to doubt the crossing guards, right? But then now creationists take it a step further. They basically they're denying geology, physics, biology, every damn
field of
thing,
science.
right? So they're claiming like, oh no, if the crossing guards tell you not to cross, then you should cross. And if they tell you to cross, then you shouldn't, right? So they're trying to convince us that the crossing guards are like this evil cabal, and you can never listen to them. And you can imagine how the kids would do.
Thinking.
Right?
That's the next C in the Flick model. But
and that's what's wrong with AIG.
I want to pick out one more point about cherry picking, which one that I think kind of gets overlooked. It didn't get put into the emerging phylogeny underneath it here, and that is not synthesizing. That is like when I point out whale evolution and I point out fossil data's fitting, embryological data's fitting, developmental data's fitting, genetic data's fitting, morphological data. Well, we've got whales with legs. They sometimes, in the fossil record, modern whales sometimes get legs from atavisms, and then they're more genetically similar to even-toed ungulate, quadruped, land mammals, hippos, than any other ocean organism. It's all these different lines fitting each other, but they just say, "Oh, you can't tell. You don't know that fossil was a whale ancestor." And it's like we hit that. That's right. Yeah, we're talking about convergences. We're talking about these different things, forms, lines of data that all seem to fit each other and support this similar conclusion. It's like when they say, no matter how much time you add, you won't get new stuff. And it's like we're not just saying we're adding time. It's time and a process. It's not just billions of years. It's billions of years of each single generation has a certain number of mutations. Some of those mutations are positive, and they accumulate due to natural selection.
Exactly. And sometimes it takes a million years for it to happen, but it does.
Yes. Yeah. But that is a form of cherry picking that often gets overlooked. But then, yes, the final point in the Flick model is the conspiracy thinking, which, of course, oh my gosh, it's really big in the creationist camp, the flat earther camp, the anti-vax camp, the climate science denial camp. This is like probably one of the corest of the the science denial Flick model. Conspiracy thinking is kind of it not only is one of the biggest, it helps support all these other bad methods of bad faith and bad thinking, because if you're conspiracy thinking, you're more likely to accept a cherry picked report. And organizations like Answers in Genesis take advantage of that all the time. Oh, there's this new paper about, they finally telomere to telomere sequence all these different primate species. Let's, flood the water with 20 different articles about it. And then all of our conspiracy thinkers will read every single one of those articles, but they won't read any of the mainstream articles. They won't read the paper itself. They won't reach out to an author.
That happens with Mary Schweitzer. That's what they did with soft tissue and the collagen. Like they act like it was just like on Ninja Turtles where they broke open a bone and all this goo started pouring out. Like it wasn't like that at all. But they will cherry pick the shit. They have found blood cells. It's like, no, they found iron deposits that, represent what would be in a blood cell. And it's like that they did not find that at all. But they will stick to their guns. It's like they think Jurassic Park is real.
I think this is absolutely true, Wesley, and what you're saying too, Jeremy. Wesley said, I think part of it is when you're skeptical about one mainstream idea, you're more likely you're more prone to become skeptical of others. And yes, I agree. If you reject evolution, you're more likely to be like, vaccines, planned dem panic. I don't need to take no stinking vaccines. That's just government lizard Illuminati trying to get 5G into my bloodstream, like
the reptiles are trying to take over again.
Yeah. So that's the Flick model: fake experts, logical fallacies, impossible expectations, cherry picking, and conspiracy thinking. And then last are just the formal logical fallacies, which these guys have been around for freaking ever. A bunch of these were the Greeks themselves came up with them. This is a big part of what philosophy has to offer to the world still, is that it can explain these fallacies to us a little bit. Mike, you're one of our resident philosophy nerds. Have you ever studied the formal fallacies in philosophy?
Not so much, no.
Man, you should get into them a little bit.
Well, I mean, I've looked, you run into them constantly, but but I haven't, they kind of, I don't know. Anyway, I won't comment on it.
I just asked
you got to be careful with it. Yeah.
We won't go through the entire list, but we're going to pick out a few specific ones, and these are really common ones that get used a lot. And one of them is the first one right at the very top left, the straw man fallacy. And we can bring this one up right away because it is one of the creationists' favorite. They use the straw man fallacy all the time, and it almost seems like a phylogenetic ancestor to all of their other arguments is this misunderstanding of evolution, where they think, and I think it issues from Hovind himself, from the kindergarten dropout himself, of evolution is an amoeba giving birth to or transforming into a whale, and that is it is a quintessential demonstration of a straw man argument, because that is not what the evolutionary model is arguing at all, right? It's not arguing that anything like that should happen. And if something like that did happen, it would actually disprove evolutionary science, because evolutionary science says that every descendant of the amoeba will be an amoeba and unequivocally won't be a whale. So he's not only straw manning the model, he's getting it completely wrong, which is kind of the point of the straw man, but it makes his straw man exceptionally weak when straw mans are already such weak arguments. But yeah, this is a quintessential one. Familiarize yourself with it, because creationists use it a lot. The straw man argument, or the reductio ad absurdum, as it's called in fun Latin words. And
we
then
cover it all the time. Oh, you're an atheist? Tell me where the universe came from.
Right. Yeah.
What started it?
That's also kind of a loaded question. That's one of the fun things too, is an argument can be multiple fallacies at the same time. It can be both a straw man and a loaded question, like that one is, for instance. Ad hominem is another really common one. You
Nobody
just believe in evolution because you're satanic.
That's one that gets thrown around a lot.
Yeah.
Nobody knows what that is.
You just hate God. You hate God. It's when you make an argument that isn't about any of the substantial reality of the situation. It's just attacking your opponent. It's just saying your opponent is stinky. So
instead of saying that they're dumb, but they don't know their information. Yeah, that's what I've learned through seeing Wits and Gets It, or some of those morons that really just love to throw that one out there, and then understanding what it really is. And it's like, man, that is just crazy. They just constantly love to throw that out there.
I can call you all kind of names if I back up with something of why I'm calling you all those names. So if you say something stupid, I can say that's stupid because X, Y, Z,
you're not saying you're
and it's not
ad hominem. You got a white T-shirt on.
Right.
Yeah, but if you say that you don't believe because you just want to sin, that's ad hom. So
yeah,
had nothing to do with the argument.
Yeah. Special pleading, of course, is another big one that is central to the creationism and evolution debate. Special pleading is basically how creationists are always going to support their ideas. And it does technically make their ideas possible, but it also makes them unfalsifiable. And that is its major drawback. Then there's begging the question. That one is another very obvious one. This is kind of similar to special pleading in some ways, I think. Begging the question is when you assume in your premise the truth of your conclusion, basically. It's like assuming God created the universe and God did so exactly as explained in Genesis, so therefore evolution can't be true. That would be an example of begging the question and using what's called fixation bias and a specific kind of fixation bias called anchoring, where everything you learn is filtered through an initial piece of information, and if it doesn't fit that piece of information, it gets filtered out, and because of that, it can it can distort your view of reality. So begging the question, ad hominem, special pleading, loaded question, straw man. What are some other ones? No true Scotsman. That one
God of
I
the
think gets
Gaps is
brought
one
up a
too,
lot.
isn't it?
Personal incredulity. Yeah, that's a big one. The two-cock.
Burden of proof. I
Two-cock
like that one.
The burden of proof. Yeah. So again, another great example of a chart to look up, familiarize yourself with these fallacies, do your own critical thinking, really, put it to the test, see if the screws stay in place or if they get wiggled out and things start falling apart. So that is that. I think with that we can start to conclude the psychology, behavior, ethology section. And are we ready to move on to anthropology and human evolution, or is there any final behavior, psychology, or ethology points we want to make?
No, we can move on.
All right, excellent.
I think human evolution will be fun.
Oh yeah, human evolution is the great one, because this is the one species creationists can't admit to evolution in.
On
Right? This one right here. And I love this because this is a very powerful tool for illustrating creationist cognitive dissonance and confirmation bias. I have seen so many instances of creationists saying there's no evidence for evolution, and then somebody posts this picture, and then they just keep saying there's no evidence for evolution. What the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah,
they're either all ape or all human.
It's like the moment from Bird Box where he's peeling her eyes open and be like, look, motherfucker.
Is that a cat you've got in your hand there, Jeremy?
Humans. There's nothing in the middle. Huh?
Is that a cat you've got in your hand?
Oh, no, it's my roommate, Frenchie.
It's a doggy.
Decided he would bring his toy up here.
So for sure, 100% when creationists ask you what is the evidence for evolution, you can absolutely just copy and paste this picture right here.
Yeah.
That we're all looking at.
But those are obviously two different kinds. There's the primate kind and the human kind, right?
The only ape and only human types. Like,
there's
no transition.
And then they'll show you a bunch of
all
pictures
of them have
of
the same knees and spines and dental.
They'll show you pictures of deformed humans. Basically to show you how the skull can.
If you want to see this in real time, so to speak, the late great Bill Ludlow did videos where he would put these skulls out for kids, and he would ask the kids, and this is some Hawaiian shirt guy says, "Oh, a 5-year-old knows difference." Well, the kids managed to put almost, if not absolutely every time, in the correct order. A couple of times they goofed a couple of them up, but mostly a child can put these skulls in order and see it for themselves. Yep.
Like, I love comparative anatomy, and that is what is my favorite thing about the human evolution line is that you can look at the knees, the shoulders, everything slowly changing in that the morphologic time. And and you watch it in the fossils, and you can see all the things that are still basal. You know, like the same knee, the way that, you know, our hips are all bowl shaped for bipedalism. Like, you know, and they love to say Lucy's, you know, pelvis is, you know, not real, and they manipulate. I was just talking about this yesterday, so I'm all juiced up about it. But like, they, you know, Lucy's hips are, that scientist did it on purpose and put them back together and, you know, made them more human-like so that they would fit.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, but they forget about the 200 plus other Australopithecines that we have found.
Yeah.
That all have the same hips. They all have the
same.
comparative.
Wesley said, real quick before we move on, Wesley said he wants this slide. Wesley, the beautiful thing about this, just go on Google and type in hominid skull chart. It'll be like the first 20 results you'll get. And there's a version of it that has all of their names and all the data next to it. You know, it says that, you know, A over here, that is an Australopithecus afarensis from about, what was it? 3 million years ago, 4 to 2 million years ago, something like that. Yeah, something like that. But it goes through the whole, it gives all the data. You know, I put this one up without the data to, see if we could guess a couple of them. Australopithecus afarensis is A there. I'm pretty sure Homo sapiens is it's N there, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, N. It's not the full on. It's it is N. It's the one all the way on the end, right? Yeah. So you got Australopithecus over here on the A. Paranthropus is over here on the G, but yeah, basically, as you can see, blended continuum of human ancestry. That humans weren't the only human species in the past, and they gradually evolved from a Miocene ape ancestor, an Australopithecine that had, you know, hominid traits and ape traits. It was bipedal, but it also had a small brain and long arms and all that fun stuff. And so when people ask for evidence of evolution, this is a great thing to put, because this one really breaks creationism, not only because it's such good evidence of an evolutionary line, but because it's evidence of the one evolutionary line they can't ever admit to, ours. Our very own one.
They will never, ever say that Lucy is a part of any evolutionary line that we are in also. Yeah. Like, and it's so great. Like, and then as you start seeing through the fossils, as their fucking shoulders start being more, you know, rotatable, so that, you know, by the time we're humans, we can throw spears with, you know, enough accuracy that we can hunt with them. From like when we were, you know, first starting out, and our shoulders, we could just lob things like our cousins, like bonobos. Like it's those little small changes that still stayed the same that they will never admit. Like they will never be like, oh no, you know, that's not a transition. It's same with Archaeopteryx, you know, the transition, but that's a different subject. But
give Mike a wrench.
Same thing.
Come on,
I'll figure it out eventually. I promise.
Give me
Austin's got to give Mike a wrench.
So
one of the things I love about this community is that too. I don't know anthropology super as well, and paleoanthropology and stuff, but I can just say, go to Erica's channel and watch every single video. She's Gut the Gibbon, Erica Gibbon. She's the best. Watch her videos. She's phenomenal. I do have a link to some of her videos later that we can maybe watch too if there's time. There's one on the heat problem we can watch a little bit of.
So, Jeremy, if you love comparative anatomy, I've got a whole bunch of books on comparative vertebrate anatomy. And the vertebrates, when you start to look at all the different kinds of vertebrates and you start comparing the structures, you really strengthen your belief in evolution incredibly, because it's just so obvious.
Awesome. Yeah, that's
just,
so
that's
many.
One that I have one book that I cannot find a download for. So
that's awesome. I'll have to get that list from you, because
I'll try to. I'm trying to do more content, and maybe that's something I should really do, is put together that list and talk about all those books. And I've got a whole bunch of illustrations, and then I got one book that I have to take pictures of It's an old book, but it's wonderful, and I cannot find a downloadable copy of it. So anyway, I'll make myself a
comparative
note.
anatomy is really one of the ones that really brings home evolution.
Yes,
Like,
exactly.
it definitely is when you can see all the different species that you can follow through their genetic lines. Like, it's amazing.
Yeah.
The transitions that have happened over the years from animals like, snakes that used to have legs, and it's just so
right.
cool.
And then you go from that to embryology, where you see how the embryos develop, and then you start looking at the molecular biology of embryology, and you can see how these different forms, one transforms into another, and then you have an even stronger belief in evolution. It's so strong all the way down.
That's why I love science. It's such a rabbit hole. Once you start diving into it, you just keep going and digging and find all kinds of things.
So I think we have already made all of the main points I want to make on this one. Anthropology. We talked about one of the points though we made earlier was ethnobotany and ethnozoology, the coevolution of species that have evolved alongside humans. Bos tauros, the cow species, and Suscrufilus, the pig species, and Felis catus, the cat species, and so on and so forth. So that is another
Austin,
really good evidence of evolution.
Before you turn the page, I have really bad news. I have an appointment. I've got to bail.
Oh, that's okay.
You're probably got to go for what, another 6 hours, you think?
Right.
Anyway.
Well, we for sure won't go any longer than 9:30 at the latest, because that's when Bad Science Sunday starts.
I should have left at 6. So anyway, okay.
Yeah, get going, Mike.
Okay, guys.
Thank you so much for coming by.
That was really nice talking to you.
Take care.
Yeah, we are making some good progress too. I think after this, it's earth sciences and dating methods, and we only have like 4 categories left after this, and we're moving on to that one right now. So here we go. There's human evolution, and here we are. Radiometry, radiometric dating. That's the big one here, and I've got some images here of tables for different radiometric compounds. And for anyone who doesn't know what radiometric compounds and radiometric dating are, radiometric compounds are unstable isotopes. So the way chemistry works is when you have a material, it's possible for it to exist in several different versions. And some of those versions will have an unstable nucleus, the core of its atomic structure. And when it does, what happens is it will gradually decay until it decays into a form that is stable. And that takes a very characterizable amount of time and produces characterizable amounts of heat. And this is what this series of charts really we have here explains. As it turns out, there are some radiometric materials that decay in matters of fractions of seconds, yoctoseconds, femtoseconds, millions of seconds, and that would be the chart on the left there. And then as you get the spectrum of radiometric materials goes all the way down to things that take, millions of years, billions of years, even trillions of years for a half-life of decay to occur. So this is what makes radiometric dating so powerful. There's literally thousands of these materials. All of the results cross-confirm each other. It's super broad, so it can date processes that occur in the yocto-femtosecond range of time to elapse to the entire lifespan of the universe range to elapse. It's an incredible field of science, and it's cross-confirmed by other fields like dendrochronology and astrophysics. And it's one of the main reasons why it's so absolutely absurd that even a single young earther exists anywhere on the planet. And that is partly because it
Carbon
contributes
14.
majorly to something we call the heat problem. And yes, it does help us date basically every physical sample of organisms that existed in Earth's past and help us put together our tapestry where we try to reconstruct the history of, nature. But anyway,
Well, the carbon 14, if you find it in anything, that means that's
right.
not
If you
prehistoric.
use a clock to measure an inch, it doesn't give you a good result. Yeah.
Exactly. But there's carbon 14 in diamonds, and they find it in dinosaur bones. So that stuff can't be millions of years old. It can only be in the 10,000 year range that carbon dating.
Don't get me started. I did a video asking where do the herds of diamonds roam.
Yeah. So basically, every argument that creationists make about radiometric dating can be responded to by just saying, when you use it correctly, it works fine.
Exactly.
If you're citing Steve Austin, we already know he's a fraud, and he does everything intentionally wrong to get crazy numbers. So
a good example,
save it. We know it's coming from Steve Austin.
A good example is also the Pompeii eruption, where they dated that almost to like the week or the month that it actually happened, which coincided with the historical record that was written down about the situation. So we already knew the date that they could get it to, and it was in with like a month. But then they'll try to be like, well, Mount St. Helens, that blew and that had million-year-old rocks and blah, blah, blah. But Pompeii is a really good example.
There's a shocking amount of the data pool in volcanological data that supports evolution. I thought, fringe science, probably not a lot of support for evolution. I found dozens of studies and papers and articles from volcanology that support evolution.
Yeah.
It's such a broad, interdisciplinary model. You really do have to reject almost virtually the entire body of scientific knowledge to reject it. It's some very capricious science denial. It's so broad.
Specimen Ridge is one of my favorite examples of volcanic activity reforming some geology. Because there's 27 layers of volcanic eruptions that were supposed to all be happening during one single global flood.
Right.
Like, that's just ridiculous. Like, there's complete ecosystems in those layers too. It's not like it's, just like
they leave that
fish
part out.
Flew in or something. It's full entire forests that are being buried in those volcanic layers. Like, but oh no, that happened during the flood.
The different environments you'll never hear about. It's never mentioned. It's always the flood is one big environment, completely leaving out deserts and forests and everything else. Every time. I have yet to hear one address the different environments in the layers. It's not going to happen, I don't think.
Oh, and plankton is another good one that you can use that is in the fossil record that shows that, the different, I think phytoplankton is what it's called.
Yeah.
But that the certain plankton only live in certain layers of the ocean. So in those layers, it's obvious that it's not just a global flood that, came through and annihilated everything, because those individual layers or levels in the water are actually being represented in that layer. Yeah. So
it's another example of niche partitioning, where it's a principle in ecology that you can't have two organisms that fill the exact same niche. They're going to have to diversify their niche somewhat somehow. And many organisms do and maintain a balance with their ecology fairly well. Humans, there's tons of species that we're out competing. Our niche is so broad that we're out competing a lot of species. And that's part of why we're doing a lot of negative impact to biodiversity, and why genetic diversity is declining in a lot of ways. But we would be remiss if we didn't, during this part of the stream that's part of the presentation that's more about psychological and critical thinking based issues with evolution and creationism, if we didn't mention the heat problem. And this is such a good problem. Does somebody else want to take a stab at describing what the heat problem is before I come in and explain it, if nobody else can?
I love the heat problem. I've listened to Erica talk about this so many times.
Yeah, again, we get to immediately recommend Erica's channel again. Like
it's such a great problem, too.
She's gone over the heat problem many times, yeah.
Because
this is anybody can do that themselves, right? You want to test friction, start rubbing your hands together.
Exactly.
That's all it takes.
And a lot of it is just basic physics and math and thermodynamics and a little bit of meteorology here and there. But and the great thing is the creationists themselves admit it's a problem. At least the smart ones do.
And how do you start a fire? You rub the sticks together, right?
Everything would implode.
Yeah.
Yep. So the basic concept of the heat problem is that when you look out into planet Earth, you see mountains, you see volcanoes, you see tidal shifts of wind and waves, you see all these processes, you see radiometric decay, you see these things that generate heat, tectonic plate movement, and if you try to fit it all in 6,000 years, that's way too much heat displacement over nowhere near enough time, and you end up with a rate of heat displacement that boils the oceans, melts the planet, and reduces its crust to a plasma hotter than the surface of the sun. And despite decades of working on the problem now, creationists still have no better solutions than a miracle, exoteric, bizarre, super future physics with like
the real
super hurricanes and stuff.
The true blue.
Wait, don't interrupt me because I got to get the three right. We covered miracles, super physics, and what's the last one? Deceiver God. Basically, a deity that, like Kent Hovind says, created a mature universe just to mess with us. And they've all said, those answers are all unsatisfying, and yet they still use one of those answers or some blend of those three answers for their current answer for the problem, and say we're still working on it, but after 30 years, they've really gotten nowhere with it.
Yeah, because they won't, because it's impossible.
Right. Well, in reality, there is no heat problem because the Earth is not that young. The problem is produced by trying to use the wrong denominator for the rate equation. It's if you use the right denominator of billions of years, the heat displacement becomes negligible, and you don't have to worry about the oceans boiling or all the little animals on Noah's Ark getting cooked by radiation. It displaces at a negligible rate that isn't lethal to every organism on the planet, and that would leave behind immense signs. It would bombard the other planets in the solar system. There's all these things about the heat problem that make it such a good knockdown, drag out argument, especially against young Earth creationism specifically. It just completely obliterates it. So I wanted to at least have one slide mentioning it there. And it does heavily tie into the radiometric dating and, earth sciences evidence for evolution, which there's a lot more earth sciences evidence for evolution, geology, dendrochronology, geochemistry, and all that fun stuff. But I am not as much of an expert in it. I do plan to study it more later, but it's here in my catalog of sciences, and I've given you a few examples of how it supports evolution. So let's move on to is this the final slide? No, this is the second to final slide. This is category 13 out of 14. We've got math and computational systems approaches. So this one is a special slide that's near and dear to my heart because I work in this field right here listed on the top, bioinformatics. I am a bioinformaticist of a kind. I study, biological systems, biological data. I use what I study about those systems to make analytical tools more effective, to improve biometric security in data systems. Evolution is pivotal to my work. I'm looking at pictures of Homo sapiens. I'm looking at data from Homo sapiens and using it to keep the world more secure. And this is a way that evolution is good for the world that you might not ever know about. Oh, sorry. This isn't the second to last slide. This is the third to last slide. There's two more after this category. But so bioinformatics, that's part of why it's important to me. And there's a lot of mathematics that is going to be pivotal to evolution as I continue working towards evolutionary biology credentials. Because as it turns out, evolution is a very mathematical field. Like population genetics and mathematical models are huge in evolution. And I have an example of one here. This is called the Hardy-Weinberg principle. And who is familiar with the Hardy-Weinberg principle besides me here? I think we lost the one other person who might be Mike.
Yeah, I don't have a clue.
I don't know. Go ahead.
Okay, so the Hardy-Weinberg principle is this is a page from my textbook about it, and I'll just read it for the audience here. In the early 20th century, English mathematician Gottfried Hardy and German physician Wilhelm Weinberg independently provided an explanation for a somewhat counterintuitive concept. Hardy's original explanation was response to a misunderstanding why a dominant allele, one that masks a recessive allele, should not increase in frequency in a population until it eliminated all other alleles. The question resulted from a common confusion about what dominant means. But it forced Hardy, who was not even a biologist, to point out that if there are no factors that affect an allele frequency, those frequencies will remain constant from one generation to the next. He's talking about equilibrium there. The idea that, if these forces aren't forcing a species to change, they'll stay at equilibrium. They'll not change. And he was able to categorize this into a couple of different mathematical formulas based on some common 5 main things. They were, of course, what's in this diagram here. You've got non-random mating, migration, genetic drift, mutation, and natural selection. Allele frequencies in a population remain constant in the absence of these forces. But part of what Hardy and Weinberg discovered is that there is no species that isn't undergoing at least 2 of these forces, natural selection and mutation. But the other forces, genetic drift, migration, and non-random mating, they often also affect several other organizations. Mike does that a lot, Sydney Rapper. We got this comment here from Sydney. I don't know if you saw that, Dave. He has started teaching me how to do that. I have not mastered that as a skill yet, but I am working on it. The more I collaborate with Mike, the better I'm getting at it. He's showing me how to do it, especially with the chromosome 2 fusion, which you should watch his stuff on that if you haven't yet, Sydney. It's awesome.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look him up.
Yeah, Answers in Atheism. He's an old head. He's been around in the community for a long time. He was one of the first ones to reach out to me and help me start developing my channel. Mike is awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah, he seemed like a really cool guy. I definitely want to figure out.
He is Mike Brusinak, HSD.
Alrighty.
That stands for high school dropout.
I've been chuckling about that since you posted that. That's hilarious.
Mike's got 1,000 videos on his channel.
Does he really? That's awesome.
Yeah, he's been at it for a while.
Yeah,
so the Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium showed that at least every species is evolving at least a little bit. So that makes evolution the 6th thing that all living organisms do. And it's a highly mathematical model, which is why it's under the mathematics and systems approaches slide here. And God, it's really hard to disprove such a powerful statistical and analytical model. It's so statistically significant, and it's data, and it's math. It's checkable. It's really observable. It's goodness.
The touchable
So
kind of.
we're clipping along a little bit here. We're moving on to these next slides because I'm getting about ready to wrap it up. We've been going for another 3 or 4 hours here, which
Mike
I think
has 977 videos.
That is awesome. I'm gonna definitely look into him.
I think 7 or 8 hours of talking about it is a good that you can fit a good synopsis of all the evidence supporting evolution in there. And good news, this one is easy and fast for us to cover. Applied evolution, we've already covered this a buttload. Medicine and agriculture, we've talked about already how artificial selection is huge for evolution. It showed that mutation and selection can produce novel changes. It can produce speciation, which speciations can then compound into all of the biodiversity we have today. Call it whatever you want. If the entire scientific community calls it evolution, but you can call it microevolution if you want. You can call it adaptation if you want. Everybody will be confused because those terms mean something else in science, but sure, call it what you want. It's fine. So yeah, that is that slide. And we already talked a little bit about the 4 levels of organization. You as a community, you as a whole organism, you as a community of cells, the colonies within the cells, and the genetic material in the colonies. And what's interesting about that is each of those levels of organization, the evolution of them was achieved by cooperation. That was the evolutionary leap that made these things happen. Microorganisms formed ecological relationships. It's so cool that we got to start off on the eco slide because, yeah, in a way, everything is about ecological relationships. And even you yourself are basically just a big 4-tiered ecological relationship. And evolution makes sense of that.
Yep, absolutely.
And then what do we have next? Okay, the final slide. And this one is the one I kind of care about least because it's all about philosophy and theology. And we've already really talked about the philosophy. We covered that with the critical thinking. The philosophy of science says scientific data is data that supports or doesn't support a hypothesis or model. We have tons of data that does support evolution. Evolution is a quantifiable, falsifiable, possible solution to unanswered questions about natural history and unsolved problems in our study of it. And it continues to be, and nothing has ever changed that. And that is the main thing that I think all of these fields have most to offer, but there's more stuff you can get into. Again, this is part of how this catalog is so useful. You can find all kinds of fields of science to pique your interest, and maybe you'll be the next person to solve a big problem facing the planet. And of course, there's more. You'll notice these numbers aren't even right anymore because since the last time we did this presentation, I found 20 more fields of science that support evolution. My list is never going to be done. I'm going to be 90 years old with a list that's 900,000 entries long of evidence supporting evolution. And it continues to grow, and it continues to be useful as a catalog for science. My endeavors here, it's so much better of a use of my time, and I'm glad this community inspired me to start doing it. These are some of these fringe, crazy, abstruse fields that were added at the second point of evolution of my list. And then we have another slide here. And this slide I wanted to include because a good presentation about a scientific model should also include some mention of the big problems the model still faces. And creationists, ironically, I don't think they actually touch on the biggest problems that I think are the best challenges for evolution very much. They say things like there is no evidence of evolution instead of talking about these two things here: the extended evolutionary synthesis and the mutation load paradox. Does anybody else here know what those are?
No, but I bet if once you
not
start
by
talking
those
about
words,
them,
but I know it.
yeah,
I know what you're talking about. It's
okay. So Mike and I both
everything.
Mike and I both like the extended evolutionary synthesis. We're kind of we're wall sitters with it. It's cool. it needs more evidence. It needs more, repeatable experiments and things like that. Needs more repeatable observation. But it's the idea that mutation and selection aren't just the main stars of the show. That there's other main characters like developmental biases at the microbiological level. Eugene Koonin is a big proponent of this one. He likes the extended evolutionary synthesis, and also Lynn Margulis, the biologist who championed endosymbiosis. They both really like extended evolutionary synthesis. So that's one of the good problems in evolution where our understanding can deepen and expand and improve. And then the mutation load paradox. That's another really good one. This one was proposed by Kondrashov in a paper in like 98, I think. And the basic idea was we understand how selection impacts a negative trait. It removes it. Like in cytochrome C, that negative trait gets removed fast. But it doesn't really impact traits that are only subtly deleterious. Like if it doesn't disable your ability to process nutrients, but it just slightly worsens it in a way that's so subtle it's almost imperceptible, selection might not impact it. So the mutation load paradox is asking how subtle deleterious mutations like that don't accumulate enough to eventually cause population collapse in organisms. And there's lots of interesting answers to it. The main answer, the one I like the most at least, is just that
nature selects it out, right?
When it becomes enough of an impact that it does negatively affect things, then yes, it will get selected out. Or what can happen is you have like subtly deleterious mutations that are similar, they're compatible, or they have convergent effects. Like if you have a mutation that makes your trachea narrower, and you have a subtly deleterious mutation that makes your lungs slightly smaller, both of those things make you worse at breathing. Either mutation alone might not be enough to get impacted by selection, but once you have both, selection sorts it out. And it's just a good way, again, that evolution's models could improve. It's a good little area. It's not a refutation of evolutionary science. It actually shows how robust evolution is, that this tiny little minutia,
because that doesn't actually happen much.
Yes, right. Yes, it shows that the problem is in our models, not in organisms themselves. So those are the two of the biggest problems, and we're finally into the conclusions and predictions slides. A good 8 or 9 hours later, we can start putting together some of our conclusions from everything we've learned here. And I've written some things up. I will read what I wrote. If you guys want to share some of your conclusions that you've learned over doing these 2 episodes together, I would love to hear those too.
Oh yeah, I've learned a ton. That was so cool, those pictures of what the genes look like earlier.
Yeah,
I'm definitely gonna have to look that up. That was super cool looking. Cool. It's funny.
This was a great opportunity for me, not just to teach, but to learn a lot myself too. I learned a lot doing this presentation, putting it together, and presenting it live to people.
Oh, I bet you've done a great job. You put all these together. You've definitely added information to every one of the things that was obviously you've done your research.
Yeah,
that's awesome. I appreciate you having me come on, man.
I remember one of the things we said during our last episode was one of the main conclusions is your threshold of suspicion for creationists should be slightly lower. and it's such an understatement.
Oh yeah.
I think Mike Shermer said it best. He said he gets hundreds of letters from people all the time that have disproved Einstein in their shed.
Yeah.
Now, have they done it? No. Could they? Sure. It's possible, but the likelihood of these people disproving well-established science because they made a video or they hang out with their Hawaiian shirt all day is highly unlikely.
Yeah, 100%. So my major conclusions that I have, the major pieces, the main evidence for evolution, experimental evolution, paleontology, genetics, demonstrates the overwhelming bulk of evolution, and it's enough to convince any reasonable person that evolution is a perfectly accurate, true, useful, successful model that's supported by all kinds of data. The minor pieces are scattered through hundreds of fields of scientific disciplines like microbiology, cellular biology, cytology, geochemistry. It's all evidence and data that improves our understanding of evolution, showing things like prebiotic pathways to life, multicellularity, key points of the evolutionary model, microorganisms, multicellular non-microorganisms are composed of all these things, these protocells and these chemicals that are produced. And this is where we get into the psychological issues here. No amount of evidence will ever be enough to convince somebody who doesn't want to believe. I can show evidence until I'm blue in the face. And I think we've demonstrated that pretty well here over, the 8 hours or so of rambling we've done trying to synopsize what is all the evidence of evolution with the aid of this little presentation I put together here. And yeah, I doubt, unfortunately, that many creationists will be convinced by it because the evolution isn't the issue. The evidence, rather, isn't the issue when it comes to evolution. It's about precognitive biases like confirmation bias. It's about emotions. It's about a lack of identifying their own critical thinking failures and overcoming them. And creationists will just declare that all this evidence supports creationism or intelligent design somehow, which they technically can do. But like I said previously, it makes their conclusions possible but not falsifiable and therefore scientifically useless. Creationism will not discover new fields of inquiry. Doing such a thing isn't even really on their radar. I think they're mostly focused on propaganda and misinformation now. And evolutionary theory and science will continue to discover new areas of inquiry. 100 years from now, there will be even more of the hominid ancestor skulls on that chart, I would guess. And evolutionary science will be studying fields that don't even exist currently. And I'm guessing the names of people like Kent Hovind and Ken Ham, the various kindergarten dropouts that are keeping this social structure aloft, are going to be mostly forgotten. There'll be a side note about the danger of science denial. So those are my main conclusions. I think one more that I didn't put down here is just that this is also a battle of freedom. Creationists do want to kind of take away our freedom a little bit. They don't want good science being taught if it makes their religion look worse. And we kind of see the manifestation of that in the psychology slide. We were talking about people like Giordano Bruno and Copernicus and Darwin. I think, and this might sound kind of extremist, I think if they could, they would still be burning scientists at the stake to keep people fixated on their religion, to keep their religion in power. But since they can't do that, they've now pivoted to this whole socio-political strategy of generating fake experts, using the Flick model and stuff like that. So these are the major conclusions I want to get out there as we're winding down the evidence, the discussing the evidence portion of the presentation. And then from here on out, it's all sources, baby. Sources upon sources upon sources. So
I bet there's a bunch.
if you are interested in disproving anything I put here, ask me for the slides, ask me for the presentation. I'll send it to you. You go straight to this section of the presentation and you start cracking into these sources and see where anything I've gotten I've used incorrectly or, not supported correctly. Because I have read almost every one of these sources, or skimmed at least every one of these sources I put here, and I have read multiple sources in at least every category I've put here. And as a result, I think I've become pretty excruciatingly familiar with the 20 or so data pools here that are most important to evolution, like archaeological data, volcanological data, genetic data, physiological, anatomical. Yes, those are different data pools. Blah, blah, blah. Anyways, enough with the pedantry and the showing off. Let's take the slideshow off the screen, and we'll do some little housekeeping and concluding. You'll tell us how to find you and where your channels are and all that fun stuff.
Oh, I don't have a channel. I don't know.
It's mainly for Dave, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't have any of that.
I'm the Captive Disc, and we gather every Saturday for Saturday Night at the Atheist, where we cover a lot of these topics in a lighthearted way. Austin knows, he's been on with us a couple times, and often Mike joins us, Scott, Brainless, Simos, and you never know who else. We had Dade with us last night, and Deconverted Man. Leo stops by. I can't even name everybody. Joe stops by. There's a ton of people who have been by Saturday Night at the Atheist. We have a good time. And otherwise, I cover all kinds of skeptical things on my channel. Captive Desk is Skeptic Dave as an anagram for the folks that don't know. And I also do the Grassman Chronicles, which is my other channel, primarily focused on cryptids, ghost stories, aliens, and other otherworldly things. And we have fun over there too. And I hope if anybody stops by my channel, they learn a little bit and have a good chuckle. That means a lot to me.
Yeah, go over to Dave's channel, like, subscribe, get a membership. Send him, all of your spare blood that you don't need. Just give him money and give him support, and just be active as heck. Just call for action. Support, drive, do what you can, fight. Talk, agitate, do it all. There's lots of people in this community who all they're doing is driving their spouses to other places to help them interact and do stuff. And that's freaking great. Maybe you can be somebody like that in this community. Maybe you can go on my page and send me some money to help me pay for college. Maybe you can, go find Jeremy and send him a friend request and tell him he's a cool guy and he needs to start a channel so he can start fighting these guys too. Do action. Get to work, y'all. And we're doing it together, and I love being a part of it. So talk to me about it anytime you want. Thank you all for stopping by and watching the video today. I hope you learned some things. I hope you've got some motivation from it. And thanks to my co-hosts. And yeah,
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, I look forward to doing some future episodes, maybe cracking into the sources. Maybe we'll do an episode all about the critical thinking fallacies and stuff and get really into that specifically, because I feel like we could do 9 hours on that alone. So thanks, everybody, and you guys have a great day.
Yeah, have a good night, man.
Bye.
Yep.
And then we're getting out right now. End screen.